Imagine hitting 30, having no job, and getting kicked out of your own home in one fell swoop. That's exactly where Kyosuke finds himself, homeless, broke, and staring into a void of total desperation. But just as he hits rock bottom, his childhood friend Rui drops a bombshell that leaves him absolutely reeling. She doesn't offer him a loan or a couch to crash on. She asks him to marry her, with the express intent of getting a divorce. It's not a fairy tale, it's a cold, calculated business transaction. Rui's rich and prideful parents won't stop nagging her to settle down. And this fake marriage is the ultimate power play to finally shut them up. Kyosuke tries to argue for the magic of soulmates and true love, but Rui isn't buying it. He cuts through his romantic delusions with a brutal reality check, reminding him exactly why he's still single at 30. The deal is simple: a roof over his head and a place to find a job in exchange for a temporary title. The catch? The contract only lasts 100 days. Kyosuke. It sounds like a win-win, but the terms are dangerously short. Caught between desperation and a sudden surge of hope, he gives in and says yes. But to understand why he'd agree to something so insane, we have to go back to the very beginning. From the first year of high school through university, Rui was the only person who ever truly stayed by his side. He's always felt a deep connection to her, but his own low self-esteem convinced him that someone like her could never actually love a loser like him. Fast forward to the wedding day, or what passes for one. It's less of a romantic celebration and more of a rushed photo op to fool the parents, leaving Kyosuke in a state of total emotional chaos. Staring at the photo on his phone, the reality finally sinks in. Actually married. Then comes the paperwork. The official marriage application that binds their lives together and gives them the same surname. But Rui doesn't do things halfway. In one smooth motion, he slides a divorce application across the table right alongside the marriage papers. They're officially husband and wife, but the countdown to the end has already begun. Kyosuke's heart is practically hammering out of his chest. A home-cooked meal from Rui? For him? In this moment, the reality of their marriage finally feels like a romantic dream come true. But that dream is crushed instantly. Instead of a feast, Rui serves a tray of supplements and bland paste, treating eating as a chore to be optimized. To her, flavor is a waste of time. But to Kyosuke, it's a total nightmare. The coldness doesn't stop at the dinner table. With no guest bed, Kyosuke is relegated to the sofa, left to ponder the true meaning of this marriage in the silence of the night. But the next morning, a familiar voice wakes him up. He hopes for a change, but the breakfast tray is just as clinical as the night before. As he stares at the supplements, a terrifying thought crosses his mind. Is this really what the rest of his life looks like? Desperate to feel like a partner, Oski offers to handle the chores. But Rui has everything under control, including Tamago, a robot vacuum that's apparently more efficient and useful than he is. Every attempt to help is shut down with cold efficiency and cash. From the laundry to the shower, Rui manages their lives like a business transaction. Kyosuke realizes with a shock that this isn't a honeymoon phase. It's a couple on the verge of divorce. He's spiraling. Between the robot vacuum and Rui's indifference, Kyosuke feels less like a husband and more like a burden. But as he notices the missing marriage application, a flicker of doubt emerges. Is she having second thoughts about the whole arrangement? Determined to change the dynamic, Kyosuke puts his heart into a handmade bento. He's nervous and hesitant, even terrified to barge into her room. But he wants this to be the start of something genuine. He peeks inside, but the sight that greets him is a total shock. Rui is sprawled face down on the floor, completely motionless. Pure panic sets in. Is she actually dead? Rushes to her side, only to find her burning up with a fever. Even in this state, the stubborn Rui tries to push through to get to work. But for the first time, Kyosuke is the one taking charge. A sudden fever strikes, and for the first time, the roles are reversed. Oski isn't the one needing a hand. He's the one taking charge, stopping Rui in her tracks. He's already made breakfast, leaving her completely stunned by his sudden initiative. From cool towels to checking her temperature, Kyosuke is on a mission. 38.9 degrees. It's high, but he's not worried. This is his moment. He's finally found a way to give back to the woman who has done everything for him. When Rui mentions a bento she'd prepared earlier, Kyosuke doesn't let it go to waste. He promises to transform it into something gentle on her stomach, then vanishes into the kitchen with a determined shout, leaving Rui in a whirlwind of unexpected kindness. Left in the silence, Rui sinks back into her pillows. She's spent so long neglecting herself for the sake of her father's legacy that she's forgotten how to be cared for. It feels strange, almost alien, to not be alone in her own home, but the silence doesn't last long. Kyosuke returns with a steaming bowl of porridge, but it's the small detail that really hits home. He remembered she loves tomatoes. Rui stares at the meal, the steam rising between them. As she takes a tentative bite, the air grows thick with a kind of tension neither of them knows how to name. Kyusuke can only watch, holding his breath, wondering if it's actually good. It's more than good, it's delicious. Seeing her reaction sparks something in Kyusuke, and he starts listing every other chore he can handle, from laundry to the deepest corners of the bathroom. He's not just cooking, he's fighting for his place in her life. The playfulness fades into raw honesty. He's tired of being the burden, tired of always being on the receiving end of help. He needs to be the one she can lean on, even if it's just for the smallest things. For a woman who has always carried the world on her shoulders, this is a revelation. Lived in a house of one for so long that the simple presence of another person feels reassuring. The contract might be fake, but this feeling is real. Rui finally asks for his help around the house, sending Kyusuke into a state of pure bliss. As he heads off to do the dishes, a new, genuine rhythm begins to form in their shared home. A simple bowl of porridge and a soft, whispered thank you. In this quiet moment of vulnerability, the distance between Kyusuke and Rui feels like it's finally starting to close. Waski is absolutely reeling. She's cute, too cute. But the romantic haze is shattered the second he looks at the clock. Pure panic sets in as he realizes he's late for his shift. With a sudden slam of the door, he's gone, leaving Rui to the silence of her recovery. But when he returns later, the air between them has shifted into something warmer, more natural. Then comes the chaos. A shower, a towel, and a total meltdown from Kyusuke. Yet, amidst the screaming and the blushing, Rui finds herself thinking, maybe this fake marriage isn't so bad after all. The peace is short-lived, replaced by bickering over health and bad habits. But then, Kyusuke notices something that stops him cold. The marriage application is still sitting there, untouched. The reason is heartbreakingly kind. Rui didn't forget. She waited. She wanted to give him an exit strategy, fearing he might grow to hate living with her. It's a moment of raw honesty. They aren't just playing house anymore. They're admitting that they actually value each other's presence, even if they can't quite say it perfectly. But reality always bites back. A failed interview leaves Kyusuke crushed, only for Rui to step in with a reminder that he still has time. Time to breathe. Time to figure things out. Kyusuke looks at her and sees perfection, wondering if he's just a burden in her bright world. He's so blinded by his own insecurity that he can't see how much she truly cares. Just as the mood gets heavy, a robot vacuum rolls in to steal the spotlight. Now Kyusuke has a new rival, a piece of plastic. He's suddenly desperate to prove he's more useful than a machine. A little bit of domestic bliss, a cute name for a vacuum, and a meal shared in peace. But beneath the surface, the countdown has already begun. As they prepare to submit their marriage application, Waski can't shake the weight of the deal. A union born with divorce already in mind. 10 years of friendship were just the prologue. Now, as Kwaski watches Rui, he feels something shifting. A connection deeper and more dangerous than anything they've ever known. The meal is over, and it's time to make it official. It's a surreal contradiction. They're walking toward a legal bond, yet the conversation is already about the end. From tomorrow until our divorce, the words are a promise and a threat all at once. Cut to the office, where Rui's professional mask is impenetrable. But today, her lunchbox tells a different story. A perfect bento with whimsical octopus sausages. A touching effort from Kyusuke that leaves the logical Rui completely baffled. To her colleagues, Rui is an untouchable goddess of the law, a stoic force of nature who never misses a beat. But Kurumi, her most devoted admirer, has noticed a crack in the armor, and she's not letting it go. The interrogation begins. Rumi knows Rui's eating habits, usually consisting of mystery pastes and pills, and these elaborate lunches are a total animal. The bombshell drops. Rui admits the truth. She's married, and her husband is the one cooking. Pure, unadulterated chaos. Rumi refuses to accept a world where the perfect Rui is taken, threatening to hunt down this mystery man. But Rui remains unfazed, holding up the bento as the only evidence she needs. But there's one glaring hole in the story, the missing ring. To Kurumi, no ring means no marriage. Just a delusional fantasy that's destined to crash and burn. Rui looks down at her bare finger, and a plan begins to form. The solution is simple. They need a ring. Kyusuke's heart leaps at the idea. Romantic imagination, conjuring images of diamonds and eternal vows. But his excitement is quickly dampened by a very cold reality. He's broke. Kyusuke tries to dream of platinum and engravings, but Rui isn't buying into the fantasy. A general store ring is all they need for the act. Every time he tries to imagine a future, Rui slams him back down to earth. This is a contract, and the clock is ticking toward their inevitable end. A robot vacuum is the least of Kyusuke's worries today. Rui is on a mission, and she's not wasting a single second. A 500 yen ring picked out in a heartbeat. Kyusuke can't even process how clinical this marriage is becoming. He tries to inject some romance into the mix, suggesting hearts or flowers, anything to make it feel real. but Rui shuts him down with surgical precision. To her, it's lame. To him, it's a crushing reminder of the gap between them. He clings to the title of husband, just to feel some ground beneath his feet. But the moment Rui wanders off to the cosmetics section, the truth hits him. Isn't a date. For Rui, this is just another chore on her to-do list. Suddenly, a memory surfaces. A voice from the past, a promise made to someone dear. She had urged him to one day give his soulmate a ring lovelier than any other, a standard he knows he can't possibly meet right now. He wants to give her the world, but he forces himself to remember. This is just a contract, a pretend marriage. He tries to shake the longing away, desperate to find Rui before he loses himself in his own head. But Rui is far more observant than she lets on. She notices the fidgeting, the restlessness, the telltale signs that Kyusuke is spiraling. She knows something is bothering him, and she's not about to let it slide. She doesn't do subtle. Rui hits him with the blunt truth. His habit of constantly putting others first is starting to piss her off. She demands honesty, reminding him that even in a fake arrangement, she is still his wife. Caught off guard by her intensity, Kyusuke makes a move, leads her away from the fluorescent lights of the store and into the shimmering glow of the city skyline. Under the shadow of the great Ferris wheel, the air finally changes. The truth finally pours out. Kyusuke doesn't want a cheap transaction. He wants a dream, a romantic exchange in a magical setting. Everything he feels he's too useless and unreliable to actually deserve. He tells her that exchanging rings in a place like this is just another way of saying I love you. Rui, for all her logic, can't deny the sincerity in his eyes. She agrees to the exchange, and for the first time, the line between their contract and reality feels dangerously thin. Kyusuke decides to do it right. A real, cinematic proposal under the stars. He's shaking, stuttering, and pouring every ounce of his soul into one desperate scream. Marry me! But Rui's response is a total mood killer. Sure, why not? He's practically short-circuiting. To Kyusuke, the rituals is everything, even if the legal papers are already signed. As he asks to slide the ring onto her finger, the air between them suddenly thickens with a tension neither of them knows how to handle. The ring slides into place, and for Kyusuke, the world turns into pure bliss. This isn't just a contract anymore, a memory he'll cherish forever. Now, he just needs her to return the favor. In the glow of the city lights, Rui looks absolutely ethereal. Kyusuke can't even breathe, completely captivated by her beauty. In this moment, the fake marriage feels like the most real thing in his life. Then comes the reality check. Rui's attempt at romance is a bit aggressive, nearly crushing his finger in the process. But as he looks at the ring on his hand, the pain is nothing compared to the rush of happiness hitting him. Rui is baffled by his obsession with romanticism, seeing no logical value in it. Kyusuke explains that it's a legacy, stories of his grandfather's grand gestures that taught him what true love should look like. The conversation shifts to the raw truth of his life, the depression, the failure, and the sting of being kicked out. But there's a glimmer of hope now that he's found a part-time job, and Rui is right there, offering the support he's craved for years. Seeing his sincerity, Rui's logical armor cracks. She feels a sudden pang of guilt, apologizing for not giving him the fairy tale proposal he deserved. She thinks she failed him. But Kyusuke is beaming. To him, this was perfect because they did it together. He's so high on the moment that he can't help but wonder, what other romantic things are there for married couples to do? The answer comes faster than expected. Rui suggests holding hands, leaving Kyusuke in a state of total shock. She claims it's just to make their act more convincing, but the truth is simpler. Seeing him happy is starting to make her happy too. The night air is thick with hesitation. Are you sure? Kyusuke asks, his voice barely a whisper. But the answer doesn't come in words. It comes as a sudden, firm squeeze of his hand. For Kyusuke, it's a total system overload. He's never felt a touch like this before. Meanwhile, Rui finds herself surprised by the simple, comforting warmth of his palm. As they walk together, two hearts beat in a frantic, mismatched rhythm. The next day, Rui is faced with a bento so meticulously crafted it practically screams affection. But the quiet moment is shattered when Kurumi bursts onto the scene, her eyes locking onto the one detail she can't ignore. The wedding ring. Total chaos ensues. Kurumi descends into a dramatic meltdown, devastated that her idol is officially off the market. She's determined to hunt down the mystery husband, leaving Rui completely baffled by the sudden interrogation about their lovey-dovey life. Kurumi continues to grill her, searching for any sign of post-wedding bliss. But the interrogation is cut short by a phone call from the one person who can cause real panic. Rui's mother. One phone call, and the atmosphere shifts instantly. Rui's shock is palpable, but as she returns home, she's met with the sight of Kyusuke in an apron, waiting for her with a warm, domestic welcome. Then, the bomb is dropped. Rui's parents are coming, and their fake arrangement is about to be put to the ultimate test. To survive the visit, Rui decides they need a crash course in romance, and lovey-dovey training begins right now. Earlier, Kyusuke had been lost in his own world, earning high praise for his cooking from a kind lady. He's so caught up in the moment that he completely loses track of time, only realizing with a jolt that he needs to rush home to Rui. He returns to find Rui attempting to put the training into practice. Her attempts at being a doting wife are clumsy and confusing, leaving Kyusuke questioning if he's dreaming or if she's finally lost her mind. The stakes are clear. They have to look like a real couple, or the secret is out. Rui takes a commanding lead, dragging a terrified Kyusuke toward her bedroom. For him, the training is about to get way too real, way too fast. Rui isn't playing around. She's come prepared with a literal lovey-dovey list to trick her parents. But for Kyusuke, looking at tasks like lap pillows and kissing, it's not a plan. It's a total nightmare. He's absolutely spiraling, convinced that kissing is setting the bar way too high for a fake marriage. And the source of this madness? Rui's research comes straight out of a shoujo manga. Step 1. The lap pillow. Rui's approach is as blunt as ever, patting her lap and telling him to just get over here. Whiskey is losing it, terrified by the sudden, suffocating proximity. When the lap pillow doesn't cut it, Rui goes for the arm pillow, by practically tackling him onto the bed. Swirsky is in full panic mode, certain that this level of intimacy is far beyond his capabilities. But Rui has one more trick up her sleeve, something not even on the list. She reveals a pillow with a giant yes on it, suggesting a secret they aren't actually sharing, just to sell the lie to her parents. Kyusuke is horrified, viewing such a thing as sacred, but Rui drops a bombshell. She's available anytime. That one sentence sends his brain into a complete romantic meltdown. Seeing his distress, Rui sighs and offers a no pillow instead, but the damage is done. Kyusuke is trapped in a cycle of anxiety, feeling like he's literally going to die from the tension. Enough is enough. Rui loses her patience, grabbing him and demanding he just kiss her to see if it works. Kyusuke tries to fight it, claiming their feelings aren't the same. But he's losing ground fast. The pressure finally snaps him, and Kyusuke breaks down in tears. Realizing she went too far, Rui softens, apologizing for getting worked up and admitting how much she's always relied on him. As Kyusuke sinks into self-loathing, convinced he's nothing but a burden, Ult delivers a realization. She asks him one simple question. If he really can't do anything romantic, then why is he still holding her hand? For the first time, the fog clears. Kyusuke finally sees it. The quiet, hidden effort Rui has been making for him all along, a realization that hits him harder than any words could. But while Rui is straightforward, Kyusuke is drowning in his own hesitation. He desperately wants her to know how he feels, but he has no idea how to bridge the gap between them. Then, a spark of inspiration hits, a simple domestic request that might just be the key to breaking the ice. Do you want to cook together? Lovey-dovey training, beta version. Kyusuke is all in, convinced that sharing a kitchen is the ultimate shortcut to romance, even if Rui views the whole thing as nothing more than work. The mission? Curry from scratch. No microwaves allowed. But the romantic plan hits a snag when Kyusuke reveals a shocking truth. He doesn't even know what a potato peeler is. Things go from clumsy to combustible when Rui steps in to teach him. One touch, one sudden shift in distance, and Kyusuke's world starts to spin as she guides his hand. Panic sets in, and Kyusuke is ready to apologize for existing. But instead of the cold shoulder, Rui hits him with a thumbs up and a burst of encouragement. He's never seen this side of her. Now it's Rui's turn to learn, and he's pushing the boundaries of their personal space. Kyusuke is barely holding it together, convinced he's 1 second away from a total heart attack. As the rhythm of the kitchen takes over, Rui finds herself staring. She's seeing a side of Kyusuke that's focused, capable, and unexpectedly natural. And then, she says it. 3 simple words. You look cool. That one compliment sends Kyusuke into a hyperdrive of passion, turning a simple dinner into a whirlwind of absolute intensity. For Kyusuke, this isn't just about making dinner. It's a dream come true. He's practically glowing as Rui guides him through the recipe. But the real shock comes when she admits she's actually having fun. The simple act of adding vegetables feels like a milestone. He's absolutely thrilled, his heart racing as they let the pot simmer, unaware that the heat in the kitchen isn't just coming from the stove. But then, the insecurity creeps back. Kyusuke apologizes for not being the romantic lead she might want, confessing that for him the quiet teamwork, the shared effort, is his own way of saying, I love you. He stammers through his explanation of love languages, leaving Rui in deep thought. Maybe traditional romance isn't the answer. Maybe this strange domestic rhythm is exactly what they need. Just as he's spiraling into nervousness, Rui drops a bombshell, a simple compliment, telling him he looked cool while cooking, and Kyusuke's world completely stops. A small knowing smile plays on Rui's lips. She starts to wonder, Could this unconventional connection actually be what true intimacy looks like? Overwhelmed by the tension, Kyusuke tries to make a quick escape. But Rui isn't letting him off that easy. The awkwardness lingers even as they finally sit down to enjoy the meal they built together. To Kyusuke, this curry is a masterpiece of shared love. To Rui, it's just curry. Her brutal honesty hits him like a cold shower, a sharp reminder of the gap between their emotional worlds. They agree to just be themselves, but Rui's mind is already racing toward the future. She imagines defending their weird bond to her parents, while Kyusuke is just trying to survive his own crushing self-consciousness. But the peace is short-lived. With Rui's parents arriving tomorrow, Kyusuke's anxiety reaches a breaking point, leaving him too nervous to even eat. Yet, as Rui tastes the leftovers, he realizes the flavor has deepened. Just like their relationship, the essence is finally starting to sink in. One bite, and he's completely compromised. Rui's lovey-dovey training is working a little too well, leaving Kyusuke a blushing, uttering mess as he realizes he just opened his mouth without even thinking. She calls it a trap, and he's fallen for it hook, line, and sinker. But the romantic tension shatters the moment her phone vibrates. One mention of her mother, and Kyusuke is instantly on edge. Pure panic sets in. Bed hair, old clothes, he's spiraling, convinced he's not presentable enough for a surprise visit. Then comes the exhale. The visit is offed. The tension evaporates, leaving only the quiet comfort of a shared meal as Rui tells him to finish the rest. But the peace is only temporary. Rui stands by the window, lost in a cloud of smoke and silence. Kyusuke watches her from the shadows, sensing a distance he can't quite bridge, wondering what's really going on in her head. Morning brings a new mission, the perfect breakfast. He presents her favorite tomato risotto with a beaming smile, but Rui is already in work mode, eating quickly before she vanishes. The door slams, cutting off his farewell. The silence that follows is heavy. He knows that look. She's clearly in a bad mood, but the reason remains a mystery. This time, he won't just be the one being helped. He's determined to be her rock. But as the rain begins to pour, a terrifying thought strikes him. Did Rui even take an umbrella? Meanwhile, Rui is drowning in the exhaustion of the corporate grind. As she steps outside with a colleague, she's met with a brutal, sudden downpour. A joke about a fight with her husband hangs in the air, but Rui doesn't even hesitate. She bolts straight into the torrent, leaving her umbrella-wielding colleague in total shock. Chaos erupts in the pouring rain as Kyusuke finds Rui absolutely drenched. He panics, practically shoving a towel into her hands, and insisting she hit the bath the second they get home to avoid a cold. But just as the tension peaks, a mysterious girl appears, staring them down with a confused look. Who on earth is this? The answer comes with a shock. Kyusuke proudly claims his role as Rui's husband. The stranger, Kurumi, is stunned, but she quickly masks it with a smirk, telling them to give her a call the moment they inevitably break up. As she walks away, you can't help but wonder how a loser like him managed to steal Rui away. With the outsider gone, a heavy silence falls between the two. Kyusuke offers to share his umbrella, and though Rui is hesitant, she steps into his space. As they walk, the air is thick with unspoken words, until Rui notices something off. Kyusuke looks completely devastated. Kyusuke quickly denies that he's the problem, but Rui admits there's a lingering heaviness in her own heart that she can't explain. That's when Kyusuke hits the nail on the head. He asks if it's because her parents canceled their visit, peeling back the layer of her composure. The truth is colder than the rain. Rui reveals the hollow reality of her family. Parents who despise each other but maintain a facade of a perfect marriage just to avoid social embarrassment. She wasn't surprised they didn't come. In fact, she was almost relieved. Growing up in that house meant learning that love was a performance. Her mother demanded she marry for stability while simultaneously neglecting her, leaving Rui to navigate a lonely existence. Now, standing under one umbrella, Rui is spiraling. Is this feeling anger, or is she just terrified of the genuine care Kyusuke is showing her? Then, without warning, Kyusuke closes the gap. He pulls her into a sudden crushing hug, squeezing her tight against him. Rui freezes, her heart racing as she whispers a single confused question. Why? The moment he realizes what he's done, Kyusuke descends into absolute panic. He stammers and fumbles for words, desperately explaining that he was just worried because she was shivering and soaked. His clumsy honesty is a far cry from the polished lies Rui grew up with. Instead of pushing him away, Rui clings back, finding a warmth she's never known. She doesn't understand the tightness in her chest or why this feels so right, but for the first time, she lets herself be comforted. It's a fragile moment of peace in the middle of a storm, but Rui isn't done. Looking up at him with an expression that sends his heart into overdrive, she drops a bombshell of a question. Do you want to sleep with me tonight? Kyusuke's world stops. The game just changed. One word. Total confusion. Kowalski is standing before the one place that feels like a battlefield right now.
Their home.
He's spiraling, convinced that this is his judgment day. But then, the door swings open. Rui stands there, completely unfazed, wondering why on earth he's taking so long. He practically vibrates with nerves, trying to merge with the wall just to keep some distance. But Rui has no patience for his modesty. With a heavy sigh and a sudden move, she pulls him right into her space. This wasn't in the contract. Rui explains that she isn't just looking for a sleeping partner. She wants to cuddle. She even brings out a shoujo manga as a guide, leaving Kyosuke's brain to completely short-circuit. Before he can even process the request, she slams into him. It's chaotic and sudden, but as the initial panic fades, a strange, warm calm begins to settle over him. In the quiet of the moment, Kyosuke sees past the logical exterior. He realizes that Rui's strength is a mask for a deep, aching loneliness, the scar of a childhood where parents were always too busy for her. He doesn't push her away this time. Instead, he reaches out, gently telling her that it's okay to feel this way, and that being used to being alone doesn't mean she doesn't need someone. Rui reacts with her usual force, grabbing his hand tight, but the facade finally cracks. In a small, fragile voice, she admits the truth she's kept hidden. She is lonely. Reflecting on their time together, Kyosuke finally understands. Rui is someone who cherishes everyone else before herself, always putting others first while neglecting her own heart. As they drift off to sleep together, the boundaries of their fake marriage vanish. Kyosuke is left with a feeling he can't describe, a mixture of sheer terror and absolute bliss. Tangled in the sheets and held in a tight, unconscious embrace, Kyosuke is completely overwhelmed. The line between a contract and reality is blurring, leaving him to wonder, how is any of this even pretending anymore? But the romantic haze vanishes the moment Rui starts tossing and turning, literally kicking him right out of bed. Despite the rough awakening, Kyosuke only feels a surge of protectiveness, determined to support her in every way he can, starting with breakfast. Over breakfast, Kyosuke tries to be thoughtful, suggesting an electric blanket to help her sleep better. But when Rui flusteredly denies having any special feelings, the truth hits him like a ton of bricks. That intimate hug from last night was solely for warmth. Rui quickly shifts back to her practical self, mentioning she's prepped dinner before heading to her part-time job. For the first time, Kyosuke feels the weight of being needed, heart racing as he asks if she's truly sure she wants him around. Rui's answer is purely logical. Having him there would be a huge help if her parents visit. It's a practical reason, but to Kyosuke, it's everything. Internally, he's screaming a vow of absolute loyalty. He'll always be there for her, no matter what. Unable to handle the intensity of his own emotions, Kyosuke blushes furiously and bolts from the room, slamming the door behind him. As the echo fades, Rui is left in a sudden, heavy silence, realizing how strange it feels to be alone in her own home again. Standing on the balcony with a cigarette in hand, Rui stares out at the horizon. She thought she was used to this solitude, but the warmth Kyosuke brought into the house has left a void she didn't know existed. Meanwhile, Kyosuke is spiraling in embarrassment over his outburst. To clear his head, he heads over to visit Kamiwata-san, pressing the buzzer and bracing himself for the encounter. The door opens to reveal Kamiwata-san, looking as polished and effortless as ever. He greets Kyosuke with a warm, welcoming smile, immediately putting the flustered young man at ease. Stepping into a sprawling, sparklingly clean apartment, Kyosuke is struck by the luxury of the place, but it's Kamiwata-san's request that really catches him off guard. A sincere admission that he simply loves the food Kyosuke makes. Enter Itsuki Kamiwata, a man who seems ordinary until he drops a total bombshell. One business card, and suddenly, Itsuki is staring at a bona fide lawyer. The two hit it off instantly, quickly moving past formalities to first names. For Kyosuke, this simple gesture of friendship feels like a huge win. As Itsuki heads off, reflecting on how the man showers him with a genuine praise. It's a warmth he craves. A feeling that reminds him so much of Rui. Fast forward exactly 1 month. For Kyosuke, this isn't just any day, it's their month-iversary, pouring every ounce of his romantic heart into planning a lavish celebration. Bam! The feast is served and Kyosuke is beaming with pride. He knows the marriage is just a contract, but he's convinced that the thought is what truly counts. But the reaction he gets is a total cold shower. Rui doesn't see a romantic gesture. She sees a pointless waste of effort. To her, 1 month is nothing compared to the time they have left. Kyosuke tries to fight for the emotional meaning of the moment, but Rui's logic is a wall he just can't climb. Defeated, he retreats into a heavy, suffocating silence. Instead of stopping, Rui pushes further, questioning the very nature of his feelings. She asks why a month is special, treating their relationship like a set of statistics. That's when Kyosuke finally snaps. He tells her that if she only sees the world in quantities and qualities, She'll never truly understand how he feels. Before she can even process it, he's already heading for the door. The door slams, leaving Rui alone in the silence of her own confusion. Kyusuke walks away, the weight of their emotional gap feeling wider than ever. A fake marriage, a hollow celebration. The guilt is eating Kyusuke alive. He's spiraling, convinced he's just a burden, until a familiar voice breaks through his misery. Itsuki sees right through him. Red eyes, pale skin. The signs of a broken heart are impossible to hide, and he doesn't let Kyusuke dodge the truth. There was a fight, and it's time to talk about it. To Kyusuke, it was just a misunderstanding, a gap in their worlds. But Itsuki calls it what it is, a fight. A clash of wills that proves they're actually interacting. But where Kyusuke sees weakness, Itsuki sees strength. He points out that speaking up about the month anniversary wasn't a mistake. It was a sign of care. A real relationship isn't about perfection. It's about the courage to be honest. The realization hits hard. The ability to argue and share differing views is exactly what makes them equals. Then bam! Itsuki isn't letting him wallow any longer, slamming the table to snap him out of it. The uneasiness Kyusuke feels? Itsuki is certain Rui feels it too. With a final forceful push, he urges Kyusuke to stop hiding and go back to the woman who's waiting for him. As he walks away, one word echoes in his mind. Equals. It's a foreign concept, a dream he never thought possible. But as he drifts through the city, the memories of their past come rushing back. Back then, the gap felt insurmountable. Rui was the brilliant, sharp-tongued star, and Kyusuke, he was just the boy constantly apologizing for his own existence. To their classmates, they were an inseparable pair, a natural fit. But while Rui dismissed the rumors with a cold indifference, Kyusuke felt the weight of her brilliance crushing his own confidence. He spent years convincing himself that silence was the only way to protect her, to stay in her orbit without causing trouble. A one-sided love, buried deep, waiting for a chance to finally be heard. Kyusuke is feeling a spark of something new. He's not the same man who just followed orders. He's finally finding his voice, clenching his fist as he realizes he might actually be standing on equal ground. But is this sudden growth enough to fix the rift between them? Suddenly, the one person he's been avoiding is standing right there, Rui. Kyusuke panics, stumbling over an apology for running away, while a flicker of hope ignites in his chest. Could she actually be here to make things right? The hope is short-lived. Rui isn't here for a romantic reunion. She's fuming that their fight was left unfinished. Kyusuke shrinks back, admitting the painful truth. He simply didn't have the confidence to face her. He tries to explain himself, fearing the silence between them would only grow. But the response he gets is completely unexpected. Rui wasn't angry that he fought back. She was actually happy to see him finally speaking his mind. For a moment, the tension softens as Rui acknowledges his growth. But the mood shifts instantly. The logic-driven woman suddenly explodes, admitting that his sudden disappearance left her feeling something she hates. Lonely. The mask slips. Rui confesses that while she's always preferred the safety of solitude, Kyusuke has turned her carefully ordered world upside down. She was genuinely worried he might not come back at all. Then comes the bombshell. With a completely straight face, Rui admits she's lonely. A raw, honest confession that shatters Kyusuke's image of her as the perfect, untouchable partner. In this moment of vulnerability, Kyusuke sees the truth. They aren't just a contract. They're two people who need to figure this out together. With a newfound resolve, he decides to pivot to something a bit more lighthearted. Enter the month anniversary. Kyusuke tries to sell the idea with pure enthusiasm, but Rui isn't buying the romance. One swift smack later, he's back to square one, struggling to explain the sentiment of his heart. But as they prepare to leave, Rui reaches out. A simple gesture, a request to keep talking on the way home. But for Kyusuke, it's everything. The distance between them is finally closing. A simple squeeze of the hand, and for a moment, everything feels right. But Rui isn't just sharing a moment of affection. She's giving Kyusuke a reality check about her true, messy nature. From throwing shoes on the floor to opening doors with her feet, she's warning him that the perfect image he sees is a lie. The peaceful vibe is shattered by a sudden, high-energy arrival. A cheerful junior bursts onto the scene, dragging Rui into the chaos of lunch break. Even in the middle of the noise, the conversation circles back to Kyusuke, with his cringe lunches, surprisingly winning over the taste buds of everyone involved. The gossip flows freely as the junior mocks Kyusuke's perceived weakness, admitting she almost wanted to whoop his ass. But the topic quickly shifts to something more dangerous, a new arrival at the office. A pointless hottie who has the whole workplace talking. A warning is issued. Rui's beauty is a magnet for all sorts of creeps. When the junior asks for the name of this new high-caliber guy, Rui answers simply, Kamiwata Itsuki, and as if summoned by the mention of his name, he appears right behind them. The air freezes. Itsuki isn't just some random coworker. He's a ghost from the past with a confident, knowing smile. Long time no see, Rui-san. The way he says it suggests a history that goes far deeper than a simple professional greeting. Smug confidence meets total indifference. Itsuki looks at her with an intensity that screams familiarity, while Rui remains as unreadable as ever. The tension is thick, and the silence between them is louder than any words. Rui's blank stare leads to a devastating question. Who is he again? The blow to Itsuki's ego is immediate, but he quickly recovers to drop a bombshell that leaves the junior reeling. He and Rui didn't just know each other. They dated back in college. Pure chaos erupts. The junior is in a state of total meltdown over the revelation of an ex-boyfriend in the same firm. Meanwhile, Itsuki plays the vulnerability card, admitting he could never keep up with Rui back then and didn't truly understand her. He spent years improving himself just to be worthy of her again, leading to a bold, public proposal to start dating once more. It's a high-stakes move, but Rui shuts it down with a single, cold sentence that changes everything. Sorry, I'm already married. Total shock. Itsuki and the junior are left frozen in a state of mental collapse, unable to process the news. Rui just walks away completely unfazed, wondering why everyone around her is acting so strange. If she's married, then I'll need to get her divorce. A chillingly calm declaration from a man who doesn't take no for an answer. Just like that, a new threat enters the picture. Absolute, pure shock. While Rui remains her usual stoic self, her colleague is internally screaming at the sheer audacity of this guy, showing up at her workplace to dismantle a marriage. To the rest of the office, he's the golden boy, capable, cool, and admired. But to those who see through the mask, he's just a creep plotting a breakup. The colleague tries to step in as a shield, but Rui shuts him down with a single icy sentence. The history between them is even weirder. A college confession and a casual sure, why not was all it took to start them dating. Now, he's begging for a second chance, but Rui is completely unmoved by his desperation. He spent years trying to improve himself, even studying overseas to become the man he thought she wanted. He even won over her parents, believing his transformation would finally make him worthy of her. But the reality was a disaster. A relationship where he only talked about himself, and she gave empty responses. Once he's finally gone, the real question hits. Why did Rui ever date a guy like that in the first place? Rui's reason is terrifyingly practical. She just wanted to experience romance for the sake of it. But that only makes the mystery deeper. If she viewed dating as a mere experiment, why did she choose Kyusuke for her marriage? Even Rui seems lost in thought, questioning her own motives. This sends her colleague into a spiral of curiosity. There has to be a secret reason why Rui picked a loser like Kyusuke over a perfect man. The search for answers leads to a food-fueled meltdown. Between mouthfuls of noodles, he compares the two men and finds absolutely nothing. Neither of them seems like a catch, so why is Kyusuke the one who won? Then, like a punchline to a joke, the man himself appears. Kyusuke, looking every bit the domestic house husband with a leak in a plastic bag, walks right into the fray. And the moment he spots Rui, the real investigation begins. Enter Kurumi, a girl with a plan and a very specific obsession. She's been observing Rui and Kyusuke from the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to see how the flawless Rui acts around her husband. But as she watches them, things take a chaotic turn. Are they actually fighting? Is their marriage crumbling already? She follows them to a store, her eyes scanning every single movement like a detective. That's when she notices it. A tiny shift, a softening of the gaze. The angle of Rui's eyebrows is just a few millimeters lower than usual, revealing a side of her that no one else ever gets to see. And then, it happens, a smile. Not a polite mask or a logical smirk, but a genuine radiating warmth that hits Kurumi like a physical blow. She's completely blindsided by the sheer intensity of it. For a moment, the world stops. Kurumi is utterly captivated, breathless at the sight of such a lovely, unfiltered expression. She's never seen Ru-senpai like this, and it leaves her in a total daze. The dream ends abruptly. The realization hits. That smile wasn't for her. It was for him. Frustration boils over as the trio finally meets face to face, with Kyusuke completely oblivious to the emotional war being waged right in front of him. Enough is enough. Kurumi snaps, grabbing Kyusuke by the collar and dragging him away with a vengeance. Rui is left standing there, completely bewildered, while Kyusuke is hauled off to a very intense private conversation. Once they're alone, the floodgates open. Kurumi screams in agony over Kyusuke's sheer denseness, practically begging him to realize that Rui has fallen deep. She's so frustrated on his behalf that she actually breaks down in tears, admitting that they really do seem to hit it off. The sympathy quickly turns back into a stern lecture. She shakes him violently, warning him that Rui is a woman who can do anything on her own. If he wants to stand beside her, he needs to kill that lack of self-confidence and realize the weight of being chosen by someone like her. Wuski tries to explain the mundane details, how Rui was just being considerate about getting takeout, but he admits he really wanted to cook for her. It's a sweet domestic sentiment, but it only makes Kurumi more obsessed with that mysterious, heart-melting smile. One final, resounding punch to the gut, literally. Kurumi demands that he stop being a coward and clearly declare himself as Rui's husband. Because as the neighborhood starts buzzing about Rui's ex-boyfriend reappearing, the time for playing temporary is running out. Rui finally finds his voice, shouting his status as Rui's husband to the world. But instead of respect, he gets a face full of rage from a girl who refuses to let Rui go to someone like him. Then Rui arrives, and the atmosphere flips instantly, while the girl turns into a blushing fan, praising Rui's perfection while Rui notices a suspicious mark on Kyusuke's cheek. Despite her disdain for Kyusuke, the girl begrudgingly admits they actually look good together. With a final dramatic wish for their happiness, she makes her exit, but that happiness is short-lived as she completely loses it, bawling her eyes out and sprinting away in a fit of hatred. Kyusuke is left staring, wondering if he's the one who messed up. Rui doesn't let him dwell on it, grabbing his hand and pulling him toward home. As they walk, Kyusuke reflects on the chaos that followed the arrival of Rui's ex. Wait, ex? Before Kyusuke can even process that word, a new voice cuts through the air, calling out to Rui with an intensity that makes him freeze. Enter Itsuki. The air grows heavy as the two men lock eyes, and Rui casually asks if he's just there for shopping. Then comes the killing blow. Rui introduces them with clinical precision. This is Itsuki, her ex-boyfriend, and this is Kyusuke, her husband. The revelation hits like a physical strike, sending Kyusuke crashing to the floor in total shock. But the real twist? Itsuki recognizes him too. The plot thickens in the worst way possible. It turns out Kyusuke isn't just the husband. He's also Itsuki's part-time employee. Talk about an awkward reunion. Talk about a nightmare scenario. Just as Kyusuke is trying to find his footing, Rui drops a bombshell. This is her ex-boyfriend. The shock is so absolute that Kyusuke practically dissolves into sand on the spot. Seeing him completely broken, Rui has no choice but to literally drag him away to save what's left of his dignity. The encounter is over, but the damage is done. As they walk away, Kyusuke can't stop the questions from swirling in his head. He needs to know, was this man really someone she once loved? Rui brushes it off, claiming they're just co-workers now. But for Kyusuke, the seed of doubt has already taken root. In his mind, the comparison is devastating. He looks at the polished, successful image of the ex and then looks at himself. The gap feels like an ocean. One question echoes through his mind, louder than anything else. If a man like that existed, then why on earth would Rui choose someone like him? Back at home, Rui tries to keep things normal with a casual fast food dinner, completely oblivious to the storm raging inside Kyusuke. Spiraling, his mind a loop of Rui and her ex-boyfriend. It's written all over his face, and Rui finally notices that her husband is far from okay. Rui attempts to clear the air, admitting the relationship was short-lived and meaningless to her. But Kyusuke isn't listening to the timeline. He's listing the ex's virtues. Reliable, cool kind. Everything Kyusuke feels he isn't. Every compliment he gives the other man is just another nail in the coffin of his own confidence. The tension finally snaps. Why Kyusuke knows this marriage is a sham to fool her parents. But he can't shake the feeling of inadequacy. He pushes past the pretense and asks the one thing he's been terrified to voice. Why him? Why settle for a friend when she could have someone truly amazing? The answer is a crushing blow. I don't even know myself. For a second, Kyusuke's heart stops. Did he just get dumped in a marriage that wasn't even real? He's trembling, convinced he's lost everything, until Rui clarifies that he's the only one she could ever actually do this with. As the silence stretches, Rui searches for the right words. She reaches for a fry, her mind drifting back to their high school days. It turns out, long before this contract, people always saw them as a natural fit. They had a chemistry that others noticed, even when they didn't. He explains the irony. While no one ever saw her with her ex, everyone assumed she and Kyusuke were already a couple. To Rui, that's the real quality, an objective connection that can't be forced or faked. It's a revelation that leaves Kyusuke stunned, questioning everything he thought he knew about their bond. Kyusuke is still lost in the depths of his own insecurity, wondering if Rui is just unsure of her feelings, until a total curveball hits. A new puppy cake game has been released. In an instant, the existential dread vanishes, replaced by the pure, unadulterated hype of a true gamer. Some things, it seems, are more important than romantic turmoil. It starts with a clash of wills over something seemingly trivial, a video game. Kyusuke is fighting for his life here, desperate for the physical boxed version, while Rui remains the voice of cold, hard logic. But for once, the persistence pays off. Rui gives in, and the victory feels like winning the lottery for Kyusuke. A date is set for her next day off, and the anticipation is already electric. At the store, Kyusuke is in absolute heaven, clutching the new puppy cake game like it's a holy relic. He dives deep into the lore of Kinoko cake, his passion overflowing as he recalls the heartbreaking sacrifice of his favorite character. He's so lost in his anxiety for the character that he doesn't even realize how close he's drifted to Rui. One look at the box, one sudden realization, and he practically launches himself backward in a panic. The air between them suddenly feels heavy. Instead of being annoyed, Rui breaks into a genuine laugh. She finds his obsession with a hard-to-use character strangely endearing, a reflection of the quirks that make him who he is. Then the mood shifts. Rui admits that his unique perspective is something she lacks, and that's exactly why being with him is so much fun. It's a small admission, but it hits Kyusuke like a freight train, she makes it clear. This isn't part of their fake marriage training. This is real. Kyusuke is left reeling, his face burning, while even onlookers are stunned to see Rui looking at him with such raw sincerity. Seeing her smile, a dangerous thought crosses Kyusuke's mind. Could she actually be falling for him? But the old demons of insecurity quickly return, forcing him to shake off the hope. He can't believe he's enough. He compares himself to the perfect Itsuki, feeling every bit of his own inferiority. But beneath the doubt, a new spark of resolve ignites. He doesn't know why she chose him, but he knows he wants to be the only one by her side. And by a sudden burst of courage, he grabs her hand, his voice trembling as he pours out his insecurities. He tells her he's not perfect, that he's not as reliable as others. But Rui just looks at him, softly confessing that he's the one she's thinking of. A lot. Osuke is spiraling. One wrong word, one awkward phrase, and he's convinced he'll destroy everything. He's terrified that he's accidentally pushed this toward a confession, and even more terrified that Rui might actually hate him for it. Panicking, he tries to retreat into his shell, babbling about needing more confidence as he attempts to make a quick exit. But just as he thinks he's escaped the tension, Rui reaches out and grabs his hand, stopping him dead in his tracks. The silence is heavy until Rui speaks with a blunt honesty that cuts right through his insecurity. She can't even imagine a reason to hate him. For someone who has spent years feeling worthless, those words hit like a tidal wave. The dam finally breaks. Kyusuke bursts into tears, completely overwhelmed by the simple fact that Rui sees him in a light he can't even see himself. He's not just crying. He's feeling a level of acceptance he never thought possible. Rui doesn't pull away. Instead, she gently wipes his tears, her face inches from his, while Suke is paralyzed, realizing that the physical contact he once avoided now feels like the only thing keeping him grounded. The world shrinks down to just the two of them. He doesn't know why, and he doesn't know where this is going, but for the first time in his life, he doesn't want to run away. And then absolute chaos. The reality of how close she is finally registers, and Kyusuke practically launches himself across the room in a fit of pure, flustered panic. Rui just watches him, amused by his spinelessness but accepting of exactly who he is. The panic fades into a warm, genuine smile. Filled with a new sense of purpose, Kyusuke makes a silent vow. He'll do everything in his power to be worthy of her. As they drift back into the comfort of domestic routine, Kyusuke realizes something crucial. Whether Rui's feelings are love or something else entirely, that's for her to decide. He can't force it, and he won't. Hand in hand, he finds peace in the uncertainty. He doesn't need a guarantee or a contract anymore. All he wants, all he truly wishes for, is to cherish her for as long as she'll let him. Enter Itsuki, a man who carries himself with a confidence that borders on arrogance. He's been watching from the sidelines, convinced that Rui deserves someone far better than the man she actually chose. To him, this marriage isn't a romance. It's a tragedy in the making. He's certain that Kyusuke is a failure who can't support her, and that Rui is simply wasting her life in a miserable arrangement. And now, he's decided to play the hero. His goal? To tear them apart and force a divorce. Meanwhile, completely unaware of the storm brewing, Rui is casually asking Kyusuke if they should celebrate their divorce-versary, leaving him absolutely horrified. But the tension spikes when Rui mentions wanting to meet up with Itsuki. The reaction is immediate. Pure, unadulterated outrage. Because Itsuki isn't just some acquaintance, he's the ex-boyfriend from hell. While Rui remains bafflingly calm, her colleagues are sounding the alarm, warning her not to let this con man back into her life. But there's a catch. Rui didn't seek him out. She was asked to meet him by her own parents. It turns out Itsuki is the golden boy in the eyes of Rui's family. A connection forged during her time studying abroad. Worried about her current marriage, her parents have recruited Itsuki to act as their eyes and ears on the ground. The bombshell drops the moment Rui walks through the door. Itsuki is coming over. Kyusuke is frozen in shock, but Rui suddenly snaps into battle mode. It's time to put their lovey-dovey training to the ultimate test. The stakes couldn't be higher. If Itsuki discovers the marriage is a sham, He'll report it back to her parents, who would likely jump at the chance to push Rui back into the arms of their favorite ex. Kyusuke spirals into a pit of absolute despair. How is he supposed to compete with a perfect man who is also Rui's client? He feels completely outclassed, but his love for Rui outweighs his fear. With a shaky breath and a heart full of nerves, Kyusuke commits to the mission. He'll be the most lovey-dovey husband the world has ever seen. The stage is set, the feast is prepared, and the battle for Rui's future begins now. Kyusuke's gone all out, transforming their home into a feast-filled sanctuary for their upcoming guests. He's buzzing with a nervous energy, desperate to make a good impression, while Rui watches him with her usual cool detachment. Then, the doorbell rings. The moment of truth has arrived, but the welcome isn't exactly peaceful. Through the intercom, chaos erupts as two colleagues engage in a loud, petty war of words right on their doorstep. One is desperate to enter, while the other is calling him a total stalker. Despite the noise, Rui decides to let them both in. Kyusuke is spiraling, terrified that one of the guests already dislikes him, but Rui remains unfazed. She has a plan, and knowing Rui, that usually means something daring. Outside, the bickering reaches a fever pitch, with accusations of creepiness flying back and forth. But the tension snaps the moment the door opens, and Kurumi bursts in with a level of energy that could blow the roof off. The second they step inside, Rui flips a switch. She lunges at Kyusuke, pulling him into a crushing, affectionate squeeze that leaves him completely breathless and bewildered. This isn't just a greeting. It's a performance. Rui doesn't stop there, doubling down on doting wife act by calling him her dear Kyusuke in front of everyone. While the guests are left questioning everything they know about her, Kyusuke is just trying to survive the onslaught of affection. The group finally settles in around the table, the aroma of Kyusuke's cooking instantly winning over the skeptics. For a moment, the tension fades into the warmth of a shared meal. But the air is still thick with unspoken questions. Kyusuke is internally screaming, unable to process why Rui is suddenly acting so lovey-dovey. As the conversation shifts to their workplace, it becomes clear that the drama followed them from the office right to the dining room. Itsuki observes the pair, noting that Kyusuke's gentle nature is the perfect contrast to Rui's headstrong personality. It sounds like a compliment, but for Kyusuke, a painful reminder that their entire relationship is a carefully crafted lie. Then comes the ultimate test, the origin story. With a practiced smile and another tight squeeze, Rui weaves a romantic tale of high school friendship and a bold confession. She's selling the lie perfectly, leaving Kyusuke trapped in a fantasy that feels all too real. Rui is not holding back. She's absolutely livid that Kyusuke just blew a textbook romantic moment, practically screaming at him for missing the grain of rice trope. But the tension isn't just between them. Itsuki is watching, and he can smell a fake. Something about their interaction feels forced, and he's starting to put the pieces together. Kyusuke is spiraling. Flirting in front of his client, who also happens to be Rui's ex, is a nightmare, and if Itsuki gets too suspicious, the whole charade crashes down. Desperation breeds with nerves, but driven by a need to protect Rui, Kyusuke decides to stop playing it safe. He's going to show them exactly what lovey-dovey looks like. Suddenly, the need is gone, replaced by the ultimate house husband. With a blinding smile and a batch of homemade pudding, he takes complete control of the room. He's not just helping, he's dominating. By treating Rui with an almost overwhelming level of devotion, he leaves the guests completely speechless. Rui tries to shut it down with a sharp glare, but Kyusuke is in the zone now. He sees this as the perfect chance to push the act even further, seizing her hand in a bold move. He's playing the part of the perfect husband to a T, convinced he's finally mastered the art of romance. But then a single photograph surfaces, a relic from their wedding day. The photo is a disaster. Neither of them is smiling. But Kyusuke doesn't blink. He spins a heartfelt lie, framing their awkwardness as a pure and honest moment of love. It's a masterclass in deception. Even Itsuki is touched by the depths of his feelings. Kyusuke is barely processing his victory when Rui decides the show is over, dragging him away with a sudden, violent pull. Just when they need to look like the perfect couple, Kyusuke completely freezes. The pressure to be lovey-dovey is too much for him, leaving Rui absolutely livid that he's ruining their cover. Rui has zero patience for his hesitation, and she lets him feel it with a flurry of blows. But their private brawl is cut short when the door slams open, and Kurumi catches them in the most compromising position imaginable. One look, and Kurumi is absolutely horrified. Between the tangled limbs and the suggestive yes pillow, the scene looks far more intimate than a fake marriage should ever be. While Kyusuke spirals into a panic, Itsuki remains disturbingly calm, treating the chaos as if it's just another Tuesday. The tension eventually breaks for dessert, leaving a completely drained Rui to collapse in defeat. Now comes the hard part, the performance. They try to play the part of the attentive couple, but beneath the surface, they're whispering insults about how cringe and shoujo manga their act really is. But Itsuki isn't just watching the act. He's seeing something deeper. He notices that despite the bickering, there's a genuine rhythm to how they support one another. Even their attempts at kindness spiral back into chaos. A simple offer to sit down turns into another explosive argument, leaving them both wondering if they're actually making their suspicions worse. To an outsider, it looks like a mess. But to Itsuki, it looks like growth. He realizes that being together has made both Rui and Kyusuke far more expressive than they ever were alone. The words are perfect. The sentiment is touching. Itsuki's praise leaves Kyusuke feeling truly seen, only for the mask to slip the second he's gone, revealing that the whole heartfelt moment was a coordinated prank. Tears are shed and promises of happiness are made, but the mood shifts instantly. As the laughter dies down, the cold reality of their original agreement returns. They are still a couple with divorce in mind. Surrounded by people and celebrations, Kyusuke feels like a ghost in his own life. It doesn't matter how much they cheer or how much others envy them. The truth is a cold, hard weight in his chest. Their marriage is nothing but a fake. The mood shatters as Kurumi completely loses it, her jealousy exploding in a whirlwind of slams and bangs. While she rolls around in a fit of despair over Rui, Kyusuke and Rui finally make their escape, thinking the worst is over. But a single comment lingers in the air, sparking a fire in Rui's mind. Ri-san is in love with Kyusuke-san. For the first time, the logical, straightforward woman is left speechless, questioning her own heart. Could it be true? Just as the emotional tension peaks, a new player enters the game with a devastating weapon. A man holds up a document that turns Kyusuke's world upside down. A divorce form. The blow is lethal. This isn't just a suggestion. It's a signed application bearing both of their signatures. The secret they've been guarding is now a physical piece of evidence in the wrong hands. The man, Itsuki, doesn't mince words. He sees right through the act, calling their union a mere facade designed to fool their parents. The illusion of their happy home is stripped away in seconds. Itsuki twists the knife, framing their lie as a betrayal of their families. He paints a picture of distraught parents and broken trust, leaving Kyusuke trembling under the weight of the potential fallout. Panic sets in. Kyusuke is desperate, practically begging Itsuki to keep the secret. He can't let this lie destroy everything, but the power has completely shifted. He tries to justify it, pleading that the fake marriage was in a kindness to help Rui. But Itsuki is unmoved, coldly reminding him that lies always lead to consequences. Then comes the ultimatum. Itsuki offers a deal. He'll keep the secret, but the price is astronomical. With a predatory smile, he drops the bombshell. Rui-san, will you please marry me? Just when things seem to be stabilizing, a bombshell drops. Itsuki makes a move that changes everything, proposing that he and Rui get married for real to satisfy her parents. Kyusuke can only watch in horror as the man who wants to tear them apart offers the one thing Kyusuke desperately craves. A suffocating silence fills the room. Itsuki plays the part of the gentleman perfectly, apologizing for the suddenness and giving Rui the space to think. But for Kyusuke, every second of this consideration feels like a countdown to his own heartbreak. With a polite farewell, Itsuki vanishes, leaving behind a wreckage of tension. Rui and Kyusuke are left standing in the void, the air between them thick with things they can't bring themselves to say. The secret is finally out, and Kurumi isn't holding back. She's floored by the revelation of their pretend marriage, laughing off the absurdity of it all before stepping away for a smoke to clear her head. To Kurumi, the chaos is almost entertaining, but she sees right through Itsuki's arrogance. She mocks his desperation to reclaim Rui, while Kyusuke spirals, wondering how his life became a disaster zone. The irony is brutal. While Itsuki spent his time plotting a divorce, the couple was already planning one. Yet, Kurumi points out the cold, hard truth. If the goal is simply to deceive the parents, Itsuki might actually be the logical choice. Then comes the killing blow. When asked if Itsuki is a viable husband, Rui doesn't hesitate. Itsuki is the right choice. The words hit Kyusuke like a physical strike, shattering what little confidence he had left. Rui doesn't look back. With a cold finality, she decides to head to Itsuki's place, leaving Kyusuke paralyzed in the wake of her departure. Panic sets in. The thought of Rui actually marrying Itsuki is more than he can bear. In a rare moment of desperation, Kyusuke finds his voice, declaring that he's going to chase after her. For the first time, the insecure NEET is fighting back. He refuses to give her up, determined to convince Itsuki to step aside. Seeing this spark of courage, Kurumi gives him a rare nod of approval, and tells him she'll handle the rest. A single notification, a familiar name on the screen. Itsuki waits in the silence of his home, the image of Rui etched into his mind. Then, the doorbell rings. The moment of truth has finally arrived, but the calm is shattered instantly. A whirlwind of chaos erupts as Kyusuke and Rui clash in a flurry of shouts and accusations. It's a domestic war zone, and Rui is absolutely livid that Kyusuke just vanished without a word. Watching them, Itsuki can't help but smirk. They call it a fake marriage, yet the chemistry between them is undeniable. He invites himself in, the tension simmering just beneath the surface as they enter the house. Over tea and stifled breaths, the atmosphere turns heavy. The pleasantries are over. Itsuki leans in, demanding the one answer that will change the course of their lives. In the shadows, Kyusuke is crumbling. He's convinced that Itsuki is the superior choice. The right choice. He prepares himself to let go, choosing to respect Rui's happiness even if it means losing her forever. But then the words finally drop. Itsuki, I can't marry you. The rejection is clean, sharp, and leaves both men reeling in absolute shock. Confusion turns to a desperate negotiation. Itsuki tries to find a loophole, but Rui shuts him down with cold precision. She knows the game. Her parents and Itsuki are too close, and that pressure is exactly why she's saying no. He can't accept it. To Itsuki, this is a matter of logic. The most rational choice was always him. He pushes harder, demanding to know why a pretend marriage with Kyusuke outweighs everything he has to offer. Then, the mask slips. This wasn't just affection, it was a lifelong obsession. Every achievement, every degree, every year spent abroad. It was all a calculated effort to become the perfect man for Rui. The dam finally breaks. Itsuki collapses into a raw, agonizing scream of betrayal. He did everything right. He put in more effort than anyone. So why is he still not enough? A tension in the room is suffocating, leaving Itsuki completely broken. But in the middle of the silence, Kyusuke does the one thing Itsuki didn't expect. He offers a genuine compliment, calling him an amazing person. Kyusuke sees the struggle in Itsuki's eyes, acknowledging the sheer effort he's put in for someone else. It's a moment of raw vulnerability as Kyusuke admits his own deepest fear, that no matter how hard he tries for Rui, it might never be enough. The atmosphere shifts in a heartbeat. Itsuki's grief transforms into a sudden, explosive realization. He lunges forward, finally screaming the truth he's been hiding. He's Kyusuke's rival in love. The declaration is a bombshell. Itsuki isn't just a friend. He's an enemy determined to take Rui back. Kyusuke is left reeling, mind racing to process this sudden war for the woman he loves. But Kyusuke doesn't fight back with aggression. With a look of quiet sincerity, he delivers a blow more powerful than any insult. He tells Itsuki that, to him, he'll always be a friend first. The fight vanishes instantly. Overwhelmed by Kyusuke's kindness, Itsuki completely collapses, sobbing into a tissue as the weight of his emotions finally breaks him. A fragile truce is formed. Itsuki agrees to keep their secrets, leaving Kyusuke breathless with relief. Only Rui remains, watching the chaotic scene with a look of utter confusion. As the dust settles, Itsuki is left with a lingering sense of guilt. He looks at Rui and realizes something devastating. She is completely clueless about the emotional storm happening right in front of her. Rui reaches out, her touch grounding Kyusuke in the present. She promises to keep supporting him, but her words carry a bittersweet edge, telling him that once this pretend marriage ends, he can always come back to her. Just as things get sentimental, Oki pivots to a completely different plan. He makes a bold, absurd offer to take care of Kyusuke himself, provided he does the chores. Rui's expression says it all. This is going to be a very long day. A sudden, breathtaking kiss, the kind that stops time and leaves the world spinning. Kyusuke is completely blindsided, his mind crashing as the reality of the moment hits him like a tidal wave. But the romantic tension is shattered by a lingering presence. Man isn't letting them go that easily, and his knowing smile suggests he's playing a game of his own. Rui doesn't waste a second, dragging a dazed Kyusuke away from the confrontation. She's done with the drama for today, leaving the other man behind with a final, cryptic farewell. The walk home is heavy with silence, the rhythmic echo of their footsteps the only thing filling the void. Finally, they step back into the sanctuary of their shared home, but the air between them remains charged. But the peace is short-lived. Rui decides to wake him up in the most chaotic way possible, hitting him with a shoujo-style surprise that sends Kyusuke into a full-blown panic. He's spiraling, terrified that the boundaries of their fake marriage are blurring. But for Rui, it was simple. He just copied a manga trope to keep up appearances. To her, it was purely tactical. As they settle back into their domestic routine, Rui reminds herself of the logic. Someone like Itsuki would have been the perfect choice to fool her parents. Kyusuke was just convenient. At least, that's what she tells herself. Yet the memory of Itsuki's offer to take care of Kyusuke leaves a bitter taste in her mouth. A strange, irritating feeling claws at her chest. An emotion she can't explain and can't seem to contain. While Rui struggles with her feelings, Kyusuke is drowning in his own. He remembers the kiss, the warmth, but then the cold reality returns. It wasn't love. It was just another act to trick the world. The celebrations, the hand-holding, rings. Every romantic milestone they've reached feels like a beautiful lie. In the end, it's all just a charade, and the truth is starting to break him. Kyusuke stands in the kitchen, the rhythmic sound of cooking masking the turmoil in his heart. He's tired of the facade, tired of the lies they tell themselves to survive this contract. But there's one thing he can't stomach, the idea of a kiss. The next morning, the air is thick with unspoken tension. Rui enters with her usual effortless composure, but Kyusuke is a nervous wreck. He can't let another day pass in silence. He has something he needs to tell her. He finally speaks his truth, his voice trembling. He tells her they shouldn't kiss. Not even to maintain the lie. To him, a kiss isn't a tool for deception. It's something sacred, reserved only for those truly in love. The frustration boils over, as Kyusuke admits he hates the idea of tricking people with intimacy. Rui is left stunned by his intensity, and the weight of his words follows her all the way to the office, leaving her shaken. Rui is a ghost of herself at work. Her mind looped back to Kyusuke's reaction. Her gloom is so oppressive that her coworkers immediately notice, with one jumping to the most dramatic conclusion. A devastating breakup. But it's not a breakup. It's a crushing sense of guilt. Rui spirals, convinced that her pragmatic approach has deeply wounded Kyusuke. She believes she's the villain in their story, wondering if an apology is even enough. A coworker tries to pull her out of the darkness, explaining that the fear of hurting someone else is far scarier than hurting oneself. She urges Rui to express her true feelings, but that's the one thing Rui has never known how to do. The realization hits hard. To the world, Rui is a machine, rational, pragmatic, and cold. But as she looks out at the city, she's forced to confront the void inside. My own feelings, Prazuchin, she wonders. What are they really? Work becomes a blur of distraction. Between frantic texts to Kyusuke and half-hearted conversations with colleagues, she can't focus on a single task. That's when she spots Itsuki, the office heartthrob, surrounded by his usual crowd of admirers. A sudden curiosity leads her to ask Itsuki about his love life. When he describes the person he likes as way more caring, Rui's mind immediately flashes to Kyusuke. Is that how he is? Is that the quality she's been overlooking this whole time? The office is in an absolute frenzy. One wrong word and Rui's composure completely snaps, leaving everyone wondering if this fake relationship is actually becoming something real. Enter Itsuki, who decides to play a dangerous game. He mocks her, claiming he knows Kyusuke far better than she ever could. A jab that hits Rui exactly where it hurts. While her colleagues are practically swooning over her rare display of anger, Rui has no time for jokes. When they suggest marrying her after the contract ends, her answer is a resounding, absolutely not. But as the night settles in, the adrenaline fades, leaving Rui alone with her thoughts. She can't stop questioning herself. Why did she panic? And why did she kiss him in that moment? The mere thought of Itsuki taking care of Kyosuke sends a surge of irritation through her. It's a feeling she can't shake, a tightening in her chest that she doesn't quite understand. And then it hits her. The truth is simple, terrifying, and undeniable. She was jealous. She can't let this go. Walking through the city lights, Rui makes a decision. She needs to tell him the truth, and she needs to do it properly. She doesn't just enter the house. She storms in like a whirlwind. Meanwhile, Kyusuke is in his own world, peacefully soaking in the bath and planning his cleaning schedule, completely unaware of the storm heading his way. Sploosh! Rui bursts into the bathroom, sending water flying and Kyusuke into a total panic. The chaos is immediate, but as the water settles, her expression is dead serious. No more games, no more contracts. Rui finally admits that her kiss was an impulse born from a fear she can no longer ignore, the fear of losing him to someone else. Rui is completely out of character, apologizing profusely with a look of sheer distress. Kyusuke is practically melting from the shock of it all, but the sudden silence that follows is deafening. Did he actually pass out from the intensity? Panic sets in instantly. Rui is practically tearing the door down, convinced Kyusuke has met his end in the bathtub. He screams back, claiming he's having a heart attack. Not the medical kind, but the kind only a hopeless romantic feels when his world is turned upside down. Once the chaos settles, the truth finally surfaces. Rui admits it. The feeling that drove her was jealousy. For someone as logical and guarded as Rui, this admission is a bombshell that leaves Kyusuke reeling. The realization hits him like a freight train. He's never felt anything like this, and the mere thought of Rui with someone else is suddenly unbearable. He's finally starting to see the world through her eyes, and it's terrifying. And then, there's the kiss. Kyusuke can't stop touching his lips, wondering if that moment was just another part of the act. Or if it was the first truly real thing between them. But reality crashes back in. The clock is ticking, and Kyusuke begins searching for a place to live on his own. A dirt-cheap apartment. A stark, cold reminder that their time together is rapidly running out. As Rui leaves him to his thoughts, The silence of the room only amplifies his doubt. Why did he fight so hard against the fake nature of their marriage? Because he's realizing he doesn't want it to be fake anymore. The thought explodes in his mind. Are their feelings actually mutual? He tries to rationalize it, desperately reminding himself of the divorce contract. But the hope is already there, flickering and dangerous. He's trapped in a mental whirlpool, unable to find a way out. While a robot vacuum mindlessly cleans the floor around him, Kowalski is left drowning in the chaos of his own heart. By morning, the lack of sleep has left him a complete wreck. Rui notices his exhaustion, offering a kindness that only makes his longing worse. He loves her completely, utterly, and now, the very contract that brought them together is the only thing standing in his way. Kiyusuke is playing a dangerous game. To keep Rui from getting jealous, he spins a lie about helping a senior citizen, but the guilt is eating him alive. He tells himself it's for her sake, but he knows he's just lying to the woman he loves. As he walks away, Rui isn't as oblivious as he thinks. She sees the shadow over his face and feels a sudden, sharp pang of loneliness. He's fighting so hard to be independent, but that independence means he'll eventually be gone. A forbidden thought crosses her mind. What if they just forgot about the divorce? What if they stayed like this forever? But the fear of hurting him again is too strong, forcing her to cling to the very contract that will tear them apart. The clock is ticking. Wasaki announces he's visiting a new place tomorrow, determined to stop relying on Rui. He's pushing himself toward a future without her, believing it's the only way to truly stand by her side as an equal. With the 100-day deadline looming on the calendar, the reality of their arrangement hits hard. Rui desperately wants to ask him to stay, but the promise they made is a wall neither of them knows how to climb. But if he's moving out, he's doing it on a strict budget. He describes a 50-year-old apartment that sounds more like a relic than a home, leaving Rui deeply concerned about his standards. Then they see it. The dream home is a crumbling wreck that looks like it's holding on by a single thread. Rui is absolutely horrified, while Kiyusuke is actually considering it. Things only get weirder when they meet the real estate agent. The man looks like he hasn't slept in a decade, leaving Rui wondering if she's walked into a nightmare or just a very bad business deal. The agent tries to sell the place, claiming its age is actually a feature, proof that it's stood the test of time. Kiyusuke is somehow convinced, but Rui can see the red flags waving from every corner. Every step they take is met with an ominous creak, and Rui is certain the whole building is about to collapse. But the real horror comes when a frantic neighbor lunges from a window with a desperate warning. Whatever you do not move in here. A murder-suicide. A lingering curse. The real estate agent drops a bombshell that would send anyone running for the hills, and Rui is already halfway there in her mind. But Kiyusuke? He just stands there, completely unfazed by the horror story. While Rui is spiraling, Kiyusuke suggests they just take a look. Optimistic. Maybe too optimistic, as they step inside. But the moment the door slides open, the reality of the place hits them like a ton of bricks. It's a disaster. Common toilets, no bath, and walls that look like they're holding on by a prayer. Rui is absolutely horrified, but in a twist of fate, Kiyusuke actually loves it. He's practically beaming at the dilapidation. Then, he opens the closet. A piercing screech echoes through the room, revealing walls splattered with what look like bloodstains. Rui is convinced they've walked into a crime scene, but Kiyusuke just thinks it needs a good scrub. It doesn't get better. Occult seals are plastered all over the walls, a desperate attempt to keep something trapped inside. Rui is trembling, staring at the nightmare, while Kiyusuke remains the eye of the storm, completely calm. Suddenly, Rui loses it. She screams that there's a hand on his shoulder, her panic reaching a breaking point. Kiyusuke looks back and sees nothing, until he turns to her with a look that freezes her blood. Panic turns into a full-blown assault as Rui lashes out in terror. Kowalski tries to play the peacemaker, arguing that ghosts are just sad souls who need understanding. But Rui isn't buying it. This place is cursed, and they need to leave. Now, but then, Kowalski says something that stops her cold. He admits that if there are ghosts here, he wouldn't mind, because it means he wouldn't be lonely. It's a heartbreaking admission that turns the horror into something profoundly sad. Rui is stunned. Seeing his vulnerability makes her heart ache, and for a moment, the ghosts are the least of her worries. She realizes how fragile he is, and she's terrified that her own harshness might break him again. In a moment of genuine kindness, Kiyusuke offers for her to stay at his house until their divorce. But the mention of that word, divorce, snaps Rui back into a defensive rage. Just as they find a moment of connection, she turns it into a fight, leaving them both wondering where they went wrong. Determination finally sparks in Kiyusuke's eyes. Despite the spooky rumors of ghosts, he's found a place he can actually call his own, and he's not letting it slip away. But just as the deal seems sealed, a single question is about to bring everything crashing down. The real estate agent asks for a guarantor, the one thing Kyusuke can't provide. The air suddenly feels heavy as he freezes, his confidence vanishing in an instant. Rui notices the shift immediately. She knows that look all too well. With a shaky voice, Kyusuke makes a quick excuse to the agent, claiming he needs to consult his parents first. The tension doesn't fade once they're alone, though. Sensing his turmoil, Rui suggests a stop at a cafe, giving him a safe space to finally break his silence. Over coffee, the truth spills out. Kyusuke wants his mother to be his guarantor, but the memory of being kicked out of his own home haunts him. Between the loss of his grandmother and a mother who saw him as nothing more than useless, the bridge back to his family feels completely burned. The courage to call home has been missing for years, leaving him isolated in his own shame. But today is different. In a moment of raw vulnerability, Kyusuke asks Rui to stay by his side while he makes the call. He just can't face the ghost of his past alone. The memories flood back. A childhood defined by loss and duty. He remembers his mother's struggle after his father died, and how he stepped up to care for his grandmother. But that devotion was met with an irritable, frightening energy that left him constantly walking on eggshells. When his grandmother passed, Kyusuke's world collapsed, and he couldn't find the strength to stand back up. Instead of comfort, he received a cold ultimatum. Stop being such a nuisance, she told him, before casting him out into the world with nothing. Back in the present, the fear is still there, paralyzing him. Then, he feels it. Rui's hand sliding into his. Her voice is steady and grounding, reminding him that finding this place isn't a failure, but a step toward the independence his mother always wanted for him. That simple touch changes everything, washing away the dread and replacing it with a flicker of hope. With Rui's hand holding him steady, Kyusuke finally gathers his resolve. He dials the number, the ringing sound echoing the pounding of his heart. The line connects. Sweating and trembling, Kyusuke forces the words out into the void. Hello? Mobbing, it's a fragile start, but for the first time in years, he's finally speaking his truth. Kyusuke is finally taking a stand, trying to carve out a life of his own. He's found a place to live and a part-time job, but there's one last hurdle. He needs his mother to be his guarantor. But the response is a cold shower of reality. His mother doesn't see progress. She only sees a nuisance, a burden who's been useless since his grandmother passed away. Every word is a dagger to his already fragile spirit. She doesn't just refuse, she mocks him, telling him to find a company to do it. To her, he's not a son trying to grow, he's just stupid. Watching from the sidelines, Rui can't take it anymore. She knows the truth, Kyusuke isn't useless. She fears that stepping in might hurt him, but the sight of him breaking is more than she can bear. Then she strikes. With a sudden, sharp interruption, Rui drops a bombshell that leaves his mother speechless. She's not just a friend, she's Kyusuke's wife. Rui doesn't stop there. She unleashes a torrent of truth, defending Kyusuke's kindness and selflessness. She turns the tables, asking the mother who the real useless person in this room actually is. She shuts down every excuse, declaring that if the mother won't step up, she'll be the guarantor herself. Her message is clear. If you're only here to hurt him, get out of his life. Panicked, Kyusuke tries to pull her back, terrified of becoming another burden in her life. But for the first time, it opens up about his past as a shut-in, and his desperate need to become independent for the sake of someone he loves. It's a raw, heartbreaking plea. He wants to work, to grow, and to finally become a man worthy of the person he cherishes. And even then, he still wants to repay the mother who just tore him down. The silence is heavy, until the unthinkable happens. His mother actually agrees. Now Kyusuke is left completely blindsided, wondering how a conversation that started in hatred ended in a way he never expected. The tension is suffocating as Kyusuke clings to his phone, his voice trembling. He's just finished a call with his mother, and the weight of the conversation leaves him completely drained. With a final, shaky goodbye, he cuts the line. But the silence that follows is even heavier. Then the dam breaks. Kyusuke collapses onto the table with a loud clang, letting out a cry of pure, unfiltered relief. Rui watches him, calling him a dummy, but her voice lacks its usual bite. There's a flicker of genuine concern as he apologizes for the trouble he's caused. A sudden, tender gesture. Rui reaches out and ruffles his hair, her eyes softening. She tells him she never wants to see him look so hurt again, and in her heart, a realization takes hold. If protecting him means seeing him smile, then she'll do whatever it takes. The atmosphere shifts, growing thick with an unspoken electricity. Kyusuke stares at her, completely bewildered. Rui is speaking these embarrassing, heartfelt things with a perfectly straight face. He wonders if this is just her personality, or if she's actually throwing her heart at him. Suddenly it clicks. Kyusuke bolts upright, his face flushing a deep red as the pieces finally fall into place. He thinks he understands now, leaving Rui blinking in confusion at his explosive reaction. And then, the words he's been longing for and dreading finally shatter the silence. I'm in love with you. The world seems to stop spinning in an instant. No more mixed signals. No more ambiguity. Rui looks him straight in the eyes and repeats the confession, her voice steady and sure. She is in love with him, and the sheer honesty of it leaves Kyusuke breathless. What? Kyusuke practically jumps out of his skin, his shock echoing through the cafe. He admits he had an inkling, but hearing it out loud, so suddenly, has completely knocked him off balance. But Rui isn't finished. She explains that this isn't the kind of love she feels for her hobbies or her friends. This is something different, something singular. This is a special kind of love, reserved only for him. She's certain. She wants to protect him, to be with him, regardless of what anyone else thinks. As Kyusuke stands there, completely overwhelmed by her sincerity, Rui leans in with one final, pivotal request. The bombshell drops without warning. Rui looks him in the eye and declares she wants them to get married. Not as a contract to fool her parents, but for real. Kyusuke is completely blindsided, his mind racing to process the sudden shift. Panic sets in. Kyusuke spirals, arguing that they aren't even dating, but Rui is as practical as ever, suggesting they simply switch from pretend mode to real mode. Then she hits him with the one question he's been terrified to answer. You're in love with me too, right? The world goes silent. The air between them grows heavy as Kyusuke struggles with the weight of his own heart. Finally, in a fragile whisper, he lets the truth out. I do love you. The tension snaps into frantic embarrassment for Kyusuke, but Rui remains steady. He opens up about the simple things that make her happy. The warmth of coming home to him and the comfort of the food he prepares. This is what she truly wants. She doesn't demand an immediate answer, telling him to take his time while she waits. But as the moment fades, Whiskey is left reeling. Even with her love laid bare, the doubt still lingers. He's fighting for a better version of himself. With a job hunt going well and a new apartment in the works, he's finally gaining ground. Yet, a dark part of him still whispers that he isn't prepared to stand beside Rui as an equal. His introspection is cut short by a familiar face. Itsuki arrives with a polished smile and a greeting that pulls Kyusuke back into the present. Itsuki isn't just there to help. As a proposal of his own, he suggests they skip the chores and head out together, just the two of them. Kyusuke can only stare in confusion. Suddenly, Kyusuke is thrust into a world of opulence. The restaurant is dazzling, far beyond anything he's ever known. Itsuki claims he just wants to treat him for all the cooking he's done, but the luxury is overwhelming. Then comes the menu, and Kyusuke's heart sinks. He stares at the price of the meat in absolute horror, turning pale as the lavish feast arrives. He's in way over his head. A fancy meal and refreshing drinks, the perfect setting for a celebration, right? But for Kyusuke, the atmosphere is anything but light, even as his friend tries to keep the mood upbeat. Itsuki doesn't miss a beat. He can see the shadow hanging over Kyusuke, and he knows exactly who's at the center of it. Rui. Then comes the bombshell. Rui didn't just want a temporary arrangement, she confessed. She wants a real marriage, a permanent one. But here's the tragedy. Kyusuke loves her. He wants this more than anything. Yet, couldn't bring himself to give her a clear answer, leaving them both in limbo. Trapped in a cycle of indecision, Kyusuke is drowning in his own doubt. That's when Itsuki decides it's time for a serious intervention. The advice is simple. Stop hesitating and chase what you want. But Itsuki isn't just preaching. He admits he once stood in those same insecure shoes. He reveals the secret to his confidence. Relentless, grueling hard work. For Kyusuke, a wake-up call. He realizes he's never actually pushed himself that hard in life. No more sugarcoating. Itsuki delivers a harsh truth. Surface-level effort is worthless. If he wants to be worthy of Rui, he has to stop going easy on himself. It's a brutal realization, but a necessary one. Kyusuke finally nods, accepting that the only way to build genuine confidence is to put in the work. Just as the mood hits rock bottom, Itsuki flips the switch back to chaos. Between dinner reservations and surprise gifts, Kyusuke is left wondering why he's the one being pampered. A night of drinking leads to some unexpected praise. Itsuki is completely wasted, leaning on Kyusuke and calling him cool for his high alcohol tolerance, leaving Kyusuke absolutely flustered. But the drunken rambling quickly shifts gears. After a few jokes, Itsuki mentions that Rui has the next day off, a detail that seems innocent enough. Until the conversation takes a turn. Then comes the bombshell. Rui's parents are returning tomorrow, and they're coming to visit. Itsuki's world spins in shock, but Itsuki reveals he's already played the ultimate wingman, telling them that Rui married a wonderful person. The catch? Her parents specifically asked Itsuki not to tell her. For Kyusuke, it's a crushing weight of expectation, but also a spark of hope. He wonders if he can actually live up to that image, or if his lack of confidence will betray him. With the secret weighing heavy on his shoulders, Itsuki urges him to head home to Rui. He isn't about to let Kyusuke stumble back alone, offering to walk him the rest of the way. A simple thanks echoes through the cold night air. As they part ways, the city looms around them, silent and indifferent to the storm of anxiety brewing in Kyusuke's head. Home at last. But the silence is deafening. As he steps inside, the weight of his own inadequacy hits him hard. He reflects on his life, feeling like he's never put in enough effort to truly deserve the happiness he's found. He clenches his fist, a desperate vow to do better, and become a man worthy of her. But the dilemma remains. Does he tell Rui about her parents or keep the secret? Torn and exhausted, he decides to sleep on it. Morning hits like a freight train. Kyusuke pours all his nervous energy into preparing a lavish breakfast, his mind racing with should I or shouldn't I, until Rui's sudden greeting sends him into a total panic. He's just about to spill the beans when, ding dong, the doorbell rings and Kyusuke's heart stops. Could they really be here already? A sudden call, a shocking revelation, and a complete meltdown. Rui's parents have unexpectedly decided to visit, and they have one primary goal, to meet the mysterious husband. Panic surges through them as Rui declares this is nothing less than a lovey-dovey pop test. They desperately try to convince each other to keep it together and act normal. But the tension is already reaching a breaking point. Chaos erupts in the house as they scramble to create the illusion of a romantic nest. Wedding photos, tea, a quick tidy-up. But just as they catch their breath, the doorbell rings and Kyusuke feels his soul leaving his body. Then they enter. The air in the room instantly freezes under the weight of an overwhelming, suffocating aura. As Kyusuke looks at Rui's mother, he realizes the terrifying truth. They look almost identical. The resemblance is uncanny. Rui's mother possesses the same sharp, commanding presence, leaving Rui visibly strained as she greets the woman who likely shaped her own rigid personality. In the quiet moments of their daily routine, sharing simple goodbyes and gentle wishes, their bond felt sweet and effortless. But those peaceful mornings are a far cry from the storm currently standing in their living room. The pressure is unbearable. As Rui introduces Kyusuke, finds himself paralyzed, unable to even look them in the eye while their intense gaze dissects his every flaw. Kyusuke is a total wreck, trembling so violently he can barely speak. Seeing his collapse, Rui decides to take a gamble. If they can't be natural, they'll just have to overact the part of the perfect couple. She leans in, playing the role of the doting wife with a sudden, aggressive affection, calling him hopeless in a way that's meant to look sweet. But the parents remain stone-faced, completely unimpressed by the performance. Total failure. As the fake romance crumbles, Kyusuke spirals back into his deepest insecurities. He can't help but wonder. Is it really okay for a woman like Rui to be married to someone as pathetic as him? Rui is absolutely beaming, practically glowing with pride as she welcomes her guests. She doesn't just show off the feast on the table. She makes sure they know exactly who's responsible. All of this was made by Kyusuke, she declares, wanting the world to see his worth. But the moment of triumph is shattered by a deafening crash. Kyusuke has completely collapsed in a heap of broken porcelain, his nerves finally snapping. In a desperate bid to save him from embarrassment, Rui quickly pivots, framing the disaster as a lovey-dovey rebound to keep the mood light. The panic shifts into something far more electric. As Rui pulls him close to check for injuries, the air between them thickens, and both are left blushing intensely. She teases him with a smug grin, but the intimacy of the moment is undeniable. Even with her parents watching from the sidelines. Fueled by a sudden surge of determination, Kyusuke vows to show them what he's really made of. But his body isn't listening to his heart. His hands are shaking uncontrollably. One clumsy move while cleaning up the shards, and he's already hurting himself again. It spirals into a complete landslide of failure. Between burns and trips, Kyusuke becomes a walking disaster zone, leaving Rui to shout his name in a panic. As the chaos settles, the conversation turns cold, with Rui's father questioning the strange dynamic of their household. The father's silence is heavy, suffocating. Kyusuke can feel the judgment radiating off the man, leaving him spiraling into doubt. He wonders if the very thing he's proud of, taking care of the home, is exactly what makes him look inferior in their eyes. Then comes the verbal blow. The father doesn't hold back, coldly listing every single mistake Kyusuke has made in a matter of minutes. Rui tries to intervene, but the damage is done. The question is now out there. Is this really the kind of life she's chosen? The truth finally surfaces. This visit wasn't a social call, but an investigation. They suspected Rui was hiding something. And now, looking at the trembling man before them, the father asks the one question Kyusuke fears most. Is he actually someone Rui can rely on? The words hit Kyusuke like a physical strike. In the crushing silence of his own mind, he finds himself agreeing with them. He feels small, lacking the confidence and the history to ever truly stand as an equal beside the woman he loves. But beneath the insecurity, a new resolve flickers to life. Kyusuke realizes he doesn't just want to be enough. He wants to be the shield that protects Rui, just as she has always protected him. With a shaky breath and a heart full of sincerity, he finally looks them in the eye to offer a humble, honest apology. Enough is enough. Kyusuke finally snaps, letting out every suppressed emotion in one desperate, heart-wrenching cry. He doesn't just want to be by her side. He wants to be the man who can actually support her, declaring to the world that Rui is the absolute love of his life. The confession hangs heavy in the air, but the moment is interrupted by a cold voice, questioning if Rui is truly sure about a man like him. That's when Rui's protective streak kicks in. If words aren't enough to prove his worth, she'll just have to show them exactly how much she trusts him. And then, she does it. A sudden, bold kiss on the cheek that leaves Kyusuke completely frozen, his brain short-circuiting in a wave of pure shock. The room goes silent, the onlookers left absolutely speechless by her unexpected move. The silence doesn't last long, as the moment quickly devolves into a chaotic argument over the proper way to give a cheek kiss. But amidst the bickering, a simple truth emerges. Despite the awkwardness, the trust between these two is undeniable. As the tension fades, Rui's father begins to look past the nerves and the stutters. He notices the small things. The way the house is scrupulously clean, every corner maintained with a level of care that doesn't happen by accident. Then comes the final test. The food. One taste is all it takes for the realization to sink in. The delicious meal is the final piece of evidence that Kyusuke has been pouring his heart into their life together. The walls finally come down. Acknowledging the daily support Kyusuke has given her daughter, father offers a sincere apology for his earlier harshness. Rui, ever the straightforward one, decides they've had enough family time and tells them it's time to go. There's a fleeting moment of vulnerability as her father admits his own failures in looking after her, expressing genuine happiness that she's found such a wonderful partner. Rui can only look on, caught between affection and her usual awkwardness. With a final, enthusiastic promise to watch over her, Kyusuke bows deeply as the parents depart. But as the door closes, Rui is left wondering why they're only deciding to be worried about her now. Now that they're finally alone, the real interrogation begins. Rui turns the tables, teasing him about his surprise attacks, before dropping a bombshell of a question. If she's the love of his life, does that mean he's finally agreeing to marry her for real? I do. Want to marry you, Rui. The words are finally out, but they come with a heartbreaking condition. Kyusuke loves her, but he can't just accept this happiness. Not yet. He's haunted by the ghost of who he used to be. An unemployed failure, a man who was kicked out of his own home. To him, accepting Rui's love now feels like another shortcut he doesn't deserve. This isn't a goodbye, it's a challenge to himself. He wants to work, to struggle, and to become a man who can look her in the eye and ask for her hand with absolute pride. I'll return to you, Rui. It's a promise born from desperation and love. Rui just sighs. Because no matter how much he changes, he'll always be the same stubborn Kyusuke. With a gentle, knowing smile, she gives in, and she understands his need for growth, even if it means letting him go for a while. And so they make the most paradoxical decision of their lives. To save their future, they have to destroy their present. Let's get divorced. The happiest divorce in history. While the clerk at City Hall looks on in total confusion, Kyusuke and Rui are beaming, because this end is actually a new beginning. Back to square one. A cramped, old apartment and a mountain of work. Kyusuke is alone again, but this time, he has a purpose that keeps him moving forward. He dreams of the day he can replace their contract with something eternal. 2 rings, a real proposal, and a life lived to the fullest. But dreams are rarely simple. He tries to focus on the grind, but every sweep of the broom and every dish he washes leads back to her. He's trying to be a better man for Rui, but the truth is, he's absolutely obsessed with her. Kyusuke is spiraling. He's a complete wreck, consumed by a crushing wave of worry over whether Rui is even eating properly since they've been apart. But then, a sudden realization strikes him as he stares at his phone, an address that changes everything. The door opens, and there she is. Rui's greeting is as practical as ever, asking for his help with housekeeping. For Kyusuke, the sight is hauntingly familiar, but the air between them feels different now. While Rui insists she's fine with food and only needs help cleaning the bathroom, Kyusuke can't shake his doubts. As he scrubs away the grime, mind drifts. Does she really have it under control, or is she just pretending? The physical labor brings a flood of guilt. He wonders if asking for a divorce was the ultimate act of selfishness. But just as he's sinking into regret, a delicious aroma wafts through the air, pulling him toward the kitchen. He stops dead in his tracks. Rui is actually cooking? Kyusuke is absolutely floored, recalling the days when her attempts at food looked like something out of a dystopian nightmare. Rui, however, isn't in the mood for a trip down memory lane. The atmosphere shifts instantly. With a sudden, intense outburst, Rui demands that Kyusuke eat what she's made and give her an honest critique. She's not just asking, she's commanding him. Stunned and flustered, Kyusuke doesn't understand why she's chosen him for this. Then, Louis reveals the truth. Because of him, she discovered the joy of flavor and the fun of cooking. She wants to return the favor and show him exactly how far she's come. Kyusuke is practically glowing with happiness. And then comes the bombshell. She's making omuris. Realization that he's about to eat a home-cooked meal made by Rui's own hands sends him into a total emotional meltdown. In a rare moment of tenderness, they reflect on the early days of their living arrangement. Rui dismisses her first attempts as non-food, but to Kyusuke, every bit of it mattered. With a renewed sense of purpose, he rushed to finish the cleaning. Mission accomplished! Kyusuke presents a sparkling clean room just as Rui serves up the steaming plates of omuris. He's in absolute awe, but as he looks closer, one glaring detail catches his eye. Where is the ketchup? Talk about a terrifying way to express affection. Rui looks like she's about to commit a crime, declaring she'll inject her love into the meal, leaving Kyusuke absolutely convinced he's about to be murdered. But this isn't a horror movie. It's just Rui's chaotic version of romance. She's gone full throttle into lovey-dovey training, unleashing a barrage of flirt bombs that leave Kyusuke completely overwhelmed by her sudden, aggressive passion. The result of her hard work, a ketchup drawing that looks, well, not exactly like a masterpiece. But to Rui, it's a heartfelt confession, and now she's challenging Kyusuke to prove his own love with the bottle. Kyusuke takes the challenge seriously, crafting a surprisingly cute portrait that leaves Rui beaming with genuine joy. For a moment, the awkwardness fades, replaced by a warmth that neither of them expected. As they finally sit down to eat, the taste of the meal hits Kyusuke like a tidal wave of emotion. Not just food. It's the effort Rui put in, and he can't stop the tears from falling. Rui admits her recipe was a bit aggressive, throwing in every ingredient she could find just to make it hearty. But to Kyusuke, every single bite tastes like a miracle. Then, the conversation turns deep. Rui confesses that her desire to learn to cook came from him. Seeing Kyusuke's own efforts inspired her to stop standing still and actually grow. She thanks him for everything he's done, acknowledging the hard work he put in for her. Kyusuke tries to brush it off, fearing he's just a burden, but Rui's gentle smile tells him he's far more than that. Even in this moment of peace, Kyusuke can't help but worry about the future, about a world where Rui has to face everything alone again, but Rui sees right through his facade. With a tenderness that cuts through his defenses, she tells him that simply having him by her side is all she ever wanted. She knows he's struggling with his confidence, but in her eyes, he's already enough. A simple offer of help, but for Kyusuke it feels like a lifeline. Rui tells him he's welcome at her place anytime, but as he eats, the familiar doubt creeps back in. Why would someone as successful as her even consider helping someone like him? Overwhelmed by guilt, he tries to apologize for being a burden. But Rui doesn't see a burden. She sees a partner. She brushes off his apology with her usual practicality, even asking for a written review of her cooking so she can improve. The conversation sparks something deep inside him. Kyusuke doesn't want payment. He wants to be useful. He makes a silent, desperate vow right then and there. He will do everything in his power to live up to the feelings she has for him. As he walks away, the weight of his inadequacy hits him harder than ever. He sees Rui evolving, growing more perfect by the day, and he realizes he can't stay pathetic. Not if he ever wants to be her equal. It's a war against his own mind. To truly stand by her side, Kyusuke knows he has to kill the insecure version of himself. He doesn't just want to be a guest in her life. He wants to be a husband she can actually be proud of. Determination quickly turns into a grueling plan. More hours, more effort, more sacrifice. He decides to pile on the work, even hunting for a night job, desperate to bridge the gap between their worlds as fast as possible. Then comes the grind. Days blur into nights of endless paperwork, frantic phone calls, and high-pressure meetings. He's transformed his existence into a jam-packed war zone of productivity, leaving no room for rest. But the cost is staggering. Under a scorching sun, drenched in sweat and fighting total exhaustion, Kyusuke pushes his body to the absolute limit. Every agonizing step is a payment toward a future where he's finally worthy of Rui. Meanwhile, back at the office, the heat is oppressive, but the conversation is even more intense. A coworker brings up the elephant in the room, the divorce. Or rather, the strange void left behind since Kyusuke moved out. The coworker tries to play the hero, urging Rui to ditch the neglectful Kyusuke and choose someone who's actually present. But Rui's answer is firm. She respects his struggle, and despite the distance, her heart hasn't moved an inch. The pressure is on. Rui's colleague, Kurumi, isn't letting her off the hook, insisting that she stop putting everyone else first and finally ask him out. After some hesitation, Rui finally caves, agreeing to send that text the moment work is over. But as she holds her phone, the nerves kick in. Why is she so anxious just to contact someone she used to see constantly? With Kurumi cheering her on, Rui takes the plunge and makes the call. The line connects, and she barely manages to get the words out. Kyusuke. It's been a while. The answer is a blow. He's got a shift tonight. For a second, it seems like a dead end, but Kurumi's advice is simple. If pushing doesn't work, push harder. Determined, Rui doesn't give up and tries to secure a date for tomorrow instead. Something is off. Rui notices Kyusuke's voice sounds strange, almost unstable. Then, in a move that catches everyone off guard, she drops a bombshell that echoes through the phone. I love you. Kyusuke is left absolutely reeling, completely blindsided by the sudden confession. While Kyusuke is spiraling in confusion, Rui shifts into full command mode. She doesn't give him a choice, ordering him to skip his shift and go home immediately. She's coming over to nurse him back to health, and she makes it very clear that this isn't a request, it's a demand. As she prepares to leave, Rui reveals the truth to Kurumi. Kyusuke has been packing his schedule and pushing himself to the breaking point. He's likely collapsed from pure exhaustion. Kurumi is enamored by Rui's decisiveness, but Rui's only focus is getting to him. The night air is heavy as Rui arrives at a dim, eerie-looking apartment complex. She knocks, her mind racing with worry, wondering if he even made it inside. When the door finally clicks open, she finds Kyusuke, looking flushed, exhausted, and barely holding on. No time for pleasantries. Rui goes straight for a temperature check, though her method is more of a headbutt than a gentle touch. The thermometer confirms her fears. A scorching 39.4 degrees. He's completely burned out, and Rui immediately orders him into the futon. The scolding begins. Rui is furious that he tried to work in this state, but Kyusuke's response is heartbreakingly honest. He admits that the mere thought of finally seeing her again gave him a surge of relief that masked the exhaustion. Until it finally caught up with him, Rui's frustration softens into genuine concern. She tells him that no matter the goal, destroying his health is pointless. With a firm hand, she orders him to take tomorrow off too, promising to put her cooking skills to use and nurse him back to health. Imagine living on nothing but pea sprouts and condiments. Rui is absolutely horrified by the state of the kitchen, realizing just how disastrous Kyusuke's diet has been. Unable to stand it, she takes charge, heading out to buy actual groceries to save him from himself. With no rice cooker in sight, Rui turns to the internet, determined to whip up some nutritious rice porridge in a simple pot. She finds Kyusuke shivering under the covers, worn down by fever, and gently lets him know that food is finally ready. Then comes the moment that sends Kyusuke's heart into overdrive. Rui begins feeding him by hand, bluntly admitting that yes, this is a display of affection. He's completely overwhelmed, caught between the delicious taste of the meal and the sheer intensity of her care. As the meal ends, Kyusuke is left reeling. He knows he's been unreliable, a man with nothing to offer, which makes Rui's kindness feel almost crushing. He can't wrap his head around why she'd go this far for someone like him. But for Rui, this isn't a chore. It's a joy. She recalls a lesson Kyusuke once taught her. That cooking for someone is a way of expressing love. It brings back a memory of when the roles were reversed, and he was the one nursing her through a fever. That memory lingers, reminding her of the profound comfort that comes from simply having someone by your side when you're suffering. In this quiet moment, Rui makes a silent vow. She wants to be that pillar of support for Kyusuke too. The more she looks at him, the more she realizes she truly wants to live with him. But knowing Kyusuke, she worries he'll keep trying to tough everything out alone. To help him find some peace, she decides to start with the one thing he can't ignore, the mess in his room. Rui begins tidying up the chaos, assuming the clutter is just a sign of how busy he's been. Kyusuke watches from the bed, mortified by the state of his space, and apologizing profusely as she organizes his papers. Everything is going smoothly until Rui's hand brushes against something unexpected. She pulls out a small mysterious box, and the second Kyusuke sees it, his entire world freezes in a wave of pure panic. Total chaos ensues. Kyusuke lunges forward in a desperate attempt to reclaim the box, accidentally knocking Rui over in the process. He ends up prostrate on the floor, clutching the secret object for dear life and apologizing in a frenzy. Kyusuke is completely broken, crushed by the weight of his own perceived failures. But then, Rui drops a bombshell. She had already bought something for the proposal. A revelation hits him like a physical blow. Collapsing to the floor, the truth pours out of him. He didn't just want to marry her. He wanted to be the man she deserved. Someone cool, confident, and capable of a romantic gesture that didn't feel pathetic. He thought he had to become someone worthy, just to stand by her side. But Rui's response is the one thing he never expected. She doesn't want a perfect version of him. She just wants him. As the walls he built around himself crumble, Kyusuke weeps, realizing that in his desperate chase for confidence, he only succeeded in distancing himself from the woman he loves. The guilt is overwhelming. He admits the crushing truth. His struggle to improve wasn't actually for her sake, but a shield for his own insecurity. While she was reaching out, he was simply running away. Rui pulls him into a hug, silencing his apologies with a tenderness that heals. To her, his struggle wasn't a failure. It was proof of his dedication. She doesn't want his ideals, she wants his heart. And now, he asks the only question that matters. How does he truly feel? The dam finally breaks. When Rui confesses that she wants to be with him too, Kyusuke lets out everything he's been holding back. It's no longer about contracts or convenience. He wants her, and he wants her forever. Confidence might be a mountain he's still climbing. But in this moment, it doesn't matter. Rui is the only thing that is real, the only thing that is irreplaceable. The look in her eyes says everything his heart needs to hear. He looks around at his tiny, run-down apartment and acknowledges that he's far from the cool guy he dreamed of being. But the fear of losing her is now stronger than the fear of being inadequate. He can't bear the thought of a life without her. With trembling hands, he offers the ring, not as a part of a fake arrangement but as a genuine plea. This isn't a contract anymore. This is a real proposal, born from honesty and raw vulnerability. As Rui gently takes the box, the chaos of the last 100 days fades into a quiet, perfect certainty. A simple thank you seals a bond that was once a lie, but has finally become the truth. The walls finally come down. Rui admits that seeing Kyusuke at his lowest, burning up with fever and looking miserable, made her realize the truth. She really does want to be with him. For the first time, the mask of logic is gone, replaced by a raw, overwhelming happiness. No more contracts, no more countdowns. In a burst of pure emotion, Rui throws herself at him with a declaration that changes everything. Let's get married! A whirlwind of passion that leaves Kyusuke gasping for air, completely blindsided by her intensity. But Kyusuke is still Kyusuke. He stammers, revealing the secret burden he'd been carrying. The desire to provide a real home and a proper ceremony, the reason he hesitated. Rui's expression softens. She realizes that while she was planning for convenience, he was dreaming of a forever. The romance is sweet, but Rui's practical side returns in full force. She takes charge of his life again, ordering him to eat, sleep, and quit that grueling night job. Kyusuke can only blush and obey, happily surrendering to her bossy but loving care. As the day winds down, a quiet tenderness takes over. A simple thank you for the ring, a soft good night, and the feeling that for the first time in his life, Kyusuke truly belongs somewhere. A new chapter begins. Kyusuke makes the first big move by quitting his night shift, but the road to stability is long. Rui, ever the strategist, breaks out the notebook to map out their future, starting with the most practical hurdle, the savings. He admits the truth. The house and the ceremony are nothing compared to the need to be by her side right now. In a moment of unexpected maturity, he asks to move into her place to accelerate their goals. It's a pragmatic move that catches Rui off guard, but in the best way possible. Then comes the ultimate test of any relationship, the budget. Rui tries to carry the heavy lifting, offering an 80-20 split since he'll handle the chores. But Kyusuke refuses to be a freeloader, fighting for his dignity until they finally meet in the middle. The list grows. From small wishes to life-altering dreams, they pour their hopes onto paper. It's no longer about a contract or a fake arrangement. It's about two people realizing that together, they can actually build a life they love. Tears of gratitude well up as Kyusuke thanks her for choosing someone as broken as he felt. But Rui shuts that down instantly. In her eyes, he isn't a project or a charity case. He's the one who saved her too. Finally, the weight of the world lifts. In a moment of pure, unfiltered warmth, Kyusuke and Rui realize they don't have to carry their burdens alone anymore. They've stopped fighting the current and decided to face everything, together. But as one chapter of their lives finds peace, another is coming to an abrupt end. Itsuki, the man who has been a constant thorn in their side, announces his sudden resignation, leaving his stunned colleagues in a state of disbelief. Not everyone is mourning the loss, while Kurumi grumbles about how obnoxious he was, and how he only joined the company to stalk Rui. Itsuki proves he's still as perceptive as ever, catching every word of her saltiness. He approaches Rui for one last farewell, but the air between them is thick and awkward. Despite the polite words, there's a tension in the room that suggests this isn't just a simple goodbye. Then the truth comes out. Itsuki admits that Rui was his first love, but it was Kyusuke, the man he looked down upon, who actually taught him what love truly means. Now, he wants to wipe the slate clean and start his life over from scratch. He leaves with a smirk and a surge of confidence, effortlessly dodging Kurumi's annoyance. He knows his worth, and as he walks away, he leaves the office behind for a fresh start. With the obstacle finally gone, a collective sigh of relief echoes through the office. But as the others celebrate his departure, Rui is left wondering if Itsuki has truly given up on his obsession with Kyusuke. Kurumi doesn't let the moment pass without declaring her own intents. borderline terrifying devotion to Rui. It's a chaotic kind of love, but for Rui, having such a loyal friend is a blessing she truly treasures. With the drama settled, it's time to focus on the future. The plan is simple. Move back in together and start picking out furniture. A new home, a new beginning, and a very determined trip to the store. But the first suggestion sends Kyusuke into a total meltdown. A double bed? The realization that they'll be sleeping side by side every single night hits him like a freight train, while Rui just looks on, completely unfazed by his panic. Who in their right mind suggests a bunk bed for a newlywed couple? Kyusuke thinks he's being considerate of Rui's restless sleeping habits, but to her, the idea is an absolute nightmare. Arguments spiral from bed sizes to the very nature of marriage. But as Rui insists that husbands and wives are supposed to sleep together, Kyusuke notices something. A flicker of genuine romance in the woman who used to be all logic. In a rare moment of vulnerability, Rui admits that she actually wants the traditional romance she once dismissed. Kyusuke is left reeling from the confession, though the mood quickly snaps back to the practical problem of Rui literally falling out of bed. Then comes the epiphany. Why settle for a bed at all? Rui proposes futons, a flexible solution that lets them be together when they want, and separate when they don't. It's a brilliant move that leaves Kyusuke completely impressed. With the bed crisis solved, they prepare to leave, but a shiny new gadget catches Kyusuke's eye. It's a new model of the robot vacuum Rui already has at home. Rui decides to buy it, but with a twist. She wants to marry the new vacuum to the old one. She names it Tomato, a sweet nod to the porridge Kyusuke made her during a fever, proving that he's been touching her heart in ways she never admitted. The conversation shifts to something far more permanent, their wedding ceremony. Kyusuke is stunned. He thought Rui only viewed the wedding as a boring formality, but she confesses that being with him has changed her. This isn't about a contract anymore. Rui wants a real memory, something they can keep inside them forever. Touched by her growth, Kyusuke listens as she prepares to make one final selfish request. Wasuki reveals his own deep-seated wish. A traditional Japanese-style wedding. He recalls the breathtaking beauty of his grandmother in a white kimono, a memory that has stayed with him for a lifetime. He tells her she would look absolutely beautiful in one, leaving Rui blushing and breathless. The fake marriage has officially vanished, replaced by a genuine romantic longing to see each other in their wedding finery. A wedding. But not the grand extravagant affair most would expect. Wasuke and Rui decide to keep it intimate, just the two of them, trading a guest list for a venue that feels special. It's a quiet agreement, a small step towards something that's starting to feel far more real than a contract. Then comes the big day. Dressed in traditional attire, Uke looks every bit the groom, but inside, he's a complete wreck. The weight of the moment is crashing down on him, and the nerves are hitting a breaking point. He's spiraling, convinced he's failing at the simplest tasks, while his mind races with images of Rui as a bride. He's desperate to pull himself together, but just as the panic peaks, a voice cuts through the noise. Rui has arrived. Time practically stops. Rui stands before him in a stunning white shiromuku, looking ethereal and serene. It's a vision that transcends everything Kyusuke ever imagined. Kyusuke is completely floored, his voice failing him as he stares in awe. Rui, ever the observant one, catches his expression with a playful smile, knowing exactly what he's thinking without him saying a word. She doesn't just accept his admiration. She returns it, telling him how cool he looks in his own right. With a gentle smile and a firm grip on his hand, she leads the way, pulling him out of his head and into their shared future. Under the shelter of a single umbrella, they walk side by side. The world around them fades away, leaving only the warmth of their joined hands and the quiet, electric tension of a love that no longer needs a contract to exist. In this moment, there's no doubt, no insecurity, only pure, radiant happiness. They look at each other not as childhood friends or business partners, but as two people who have finally found where they belong. The path leads them through the torii gate, stepping into the sacred silence of the shrine. Everything is ready for the vows that will change their lives forever. Looking back at the photos later, the difference is striking. They aren't just posing for a camera, they're capturing a transformation. They look happier, softer, and more genuine than they ever were before, proving that sometimes the most convenient arrangements lead to the most irreplaceable loves. It starts with a simple comparison of wedding photos, a look back at where they began. But then, Rui drops a bombshell that sends Kyusuke's heart into overdrive. A sudden, blunt demand for a kiss. The logic is simple. Their first wedding was all rituals and no romance, leaving them without a single real kiss. Now, Rui wants to make up for lost time, and despite his absolute panic, Kyusuke finds himself unable to refuse. The tension reaches a breaking point as Rui leans in, her voice a soft command to close his eyes. Kyusuke is completely paralyzed. caught in the gravity of a moment he's dreamed of but never expected. And then it happens. A kiss that isn't for a photographer or a tradition, but a genuine, breathtaking collision of two souls finally finding their rhythm. The world stops for Kyusuke, leaving him breathless and overwhelmed. Rui, ever the practical one, can't help but tease him for staying frozen in the afterglow for so long. He's a blushing mess, hiding his face in sheer embarrassment, but Rui softens. In a moment of raw honesty, she promises to stay by his side for the rest of their lives, turning a temporary contract into a forever vow. Just as the emotional weight sinks in, Rui pivots back to her eccentric self. To help him get used to the intimacy, she declares a new mission, an endless cycle of lovey-dovey practice. Before he can even process the plan, she seizes his hand, pulling him toward the kitchen. The romance is whirlwind, the pace is frantic, but the connection is undeniable. Intertwined fingers and the quiet comfort of their shared home. The distance between them has vanished, replaced by a domestic peace they both secretly craved. As Rui gazes out at the world, Kyusuke reaches out, no longer just following her lead. With a gentle smile, he invites her into the simplest, most meaningful part of their day, making a meal together. The weight of expectation and doubt finally lifts. A gentle hand reaches out, met with a smile that carries a lifetime of understanding. That sounds lovely. A simple phrase, but for them, the only permission they ever really needed. No more contracts. No more countdowns to a divorce that neither of them wants. In the soft glow of their shared home, Kyusuke and Rui finally stop pretending and start living. They've built something real out of a lie. For the first time, the future doesn't feel like a deadline. It feels like a promise.